Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime, who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
I imagine if he decides to issue these preemptive pardons, it will be cast in a way that he is protecting his family and protecting their reputations from, villainous exterior forces that are against him.
First off, we should just take a deep breath and acknowledge the audacity of a president who's so clearly concerned about his own criminal culpability and that of his family members that pardons are a major obsession with him.
The idea of a kind of prospective pardon, this sort of permanent federal get out of jail free card, that seems to be what we're talking about in the case of this, right? With Giuliani and his 3 eldest children who, as far as we know, have not been convicted of a crime. Maybe they've committed a lot and they don't want to face action. I don't know. It's weird. I wouldn't ask for a pardon. I don't think I deserve one because I don't think I've done anything criminal. But where does that come from? That concept that you can just kind of wave your magic pardon wand.
We have Tish James. We have Xavier Becerra. Mimi Roca is literally my DA in my town. There will be opportunities to prosecute these people regardless if they abuse the pardon power as they are thinking.
Hopefully, Ellie, there will be a skyfall on this entire crime family, and there will be another day for them to die.
The president does indeed pardon, let's say, Rudy Giuliani or any members of his family. Would you see that, and I asked Preet Bharara this question, as essentially an admission of guilt?
I certainly would view it that way. I think millions of Americans would view it that way. If there was no belief in criminality, why would he think a pardon was necessary?
CNN has learned President Biden will pardon his son Hunter Biden.
Follow. You know what that means? Like, share, follow. They're talking to you. They're talking to you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fire Program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic, back from the swamp itself, covered in all sorts of slimy, yucky, icky, ew. It's DC. You go to DC and it's like you feel like you almost have to push the toxic energy out of your way. Normally, although I will say that the vibes in DC this weekend were just exceptional. Everywhere you went, people are smiling, people are laughing, people are joking around. I actually heard a borderline kind of racist joke said to a black guy, and the black guy exploded in laughter. It was awesome. It was like, we're really freaking back. We're really freaking back. We were walking to the Liberty Ball, and there's a crush of humanity, all decked to the nines. And so they had some military there who were trying to do some sort of crowd control. And they're like, and he's like, I need to see your invite. I need to see your invite. And we're walking 6 people wide. And there's one guy there just standing in the middle of the whole crush of humanity that's just going by them. And everyone's just ignoring him. Everyone's just ignoring him. But I was walking right behind me was this black couple, which honestly, I'm not going to kid you. I think they were the only black people in the entire crowd. He's like, yo, I need to see your invite. And the guy in front of me is like, well, that seemed a little odd. That seemed a little strange. I was like, that was totally profiling. He's like, you don't belong here. What you doing here? And the black guy and his date were they were laughing like anything. They were like, that was totally racial profiling right there. it would have been far worse, I guess, if the Marine or whoever it was that was trying to slow him down. It was hard to tell because they're dressed in battle fatigues. So I'm just not sufficiently. I'm just guessing, but yeah, he was black himself, so it was like the black military guy stopped the only black person in the audience and made him basically show his invite. I thought it was, we all could not, like, the entire rest of the way in, like, we were all just like couldn't stop laughing about how he's the one who got stopped. totally back. Now my mood yesterday got a little dampened when I got the most Karen security guard in the world who made me throw away a completely sealed vape, which that really put a dampening on the entire night. And if you're not nicotine addicted, I don't think you can fully appreciate how that just sort of puts you in a foul mood. And when you're standing for like 5 hours and not having your nicotine, the mood, and it's like slightly warm in the room, the mood gets foul pretty quickly. But the music and energy was high. I got to meet Senator Langford. I identified and walked over and started like an 8-minute conversation with Senator Langford while his wife waited patiently listening to us as I regaled him. I went through the entire thing on locals. I don't want to spend really very much, if any more time talking about my trip to DC. All that stuff is personal. I don't really have any secrets about like anything that happened there. It's simply a matter of that's really more of a locals conversation where I gave that kind of detailed breakdown. That was what I gave while I was doing my drive back. It was like a 2-hour like blow by blow of my entire trip, which I thank God managed to survive, even though on the way down there I wasn't sure I wasn't very sure of that outcome until I actually arrived at the hotel and all the ups and downs along the way. But this show, I really want to talk more about the developments that all quickly followed, starting with the morning of January 20th, when Biden unleashed pardons all over the place, continuing on through Trump's initial steps since he was sworn in, and he has been engaging in a flurry of activity, much to the delight of the vast majority of MAGA, all of them pretty roundly applauding every step he's been taking since the moment he got sworn in and the very first speech that he gave. It was just he's been doing some very fine work. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to keep it more of a global thing rather than my personal experience in DC. That if you want to check that out, I urge you to check out goodlogic.locals.com. where I have like a 2-hour drive I spent like 2 hours in my drive just going blow by blow on that. So I urge you to check that out, goodlogic.locals.com. But here we're going to stay more macro. We're going to stay more global. We're going to talk about like what actually has happened that people in the world have heard about. And actually, I really want to start. I think we're going to start with Elon. That's what I want to start with. So it was a whole big kerfuffle involving Elon and his supposedly racist salute, where people are accusing him of giving the old Sig Heil salute, and what is just an outrageous claim that has been made. Let me just grab these real quick here. Good evening, all. All hail God, Emperor Trump may reign for 20 more years. LOL. Just kidding. Just had to piss off the libs. I think I'd be okay with it. The Grinsurrection. Yeah. Has Ross Ulbricht been released yet? No pardon was signed. I don't know if he's been released yet. I don't know the status of anyone being released. I know that there was a massive holdup that was aggravating a lot of people, where it feels as if the DC police are keeping them in what's being referred to as the gulag, where they're keeping these political prisoners, despite Trump timely signing an order but the status of their release and who's out and who's not yet, it's hard for me to keep abreast of. DC is like flipping Versailles. Does the EPA really need columns? -1 Detroit now. Folks need to stay warm. Cold can kill. It can. So can snow, that's for sure. Snow is scary. Snow is scary as anything. So what I wanted to start with, this over here. Let's start with this. I will I will cover this one thing here. Since we're talking about the release of those prisoners, and someone asked whether they've actually been released. This was earlier today. Diligent Denizen, who's one of the people I managed to meet and really enjoyed spending time with during this little trip of mine. So he reported U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert says President Trump needs to intervene to get J6 hostages out quickly, as the D.C. Gulag jail where our prisoners are kept, U.S. Marshals say the release is bogged down by paperwork. Let our people go. Here's Lauren weighing in with that.
2 hostages here in this jail, and according to the United States Marshal, he's dealing with them one by one and getting all the paperwork. So, I would love for President Trump or Attorney General Pam Bondi step in and help us out here with the U.S. Marshals and make sure that doesn't become a paperwork issue. These men have already paid too much time, more time than they ever should. They should have never been locked up. I was on a news interview, and 2 hostages here in this.
That was a clip that he shared. Oh, here we go. I sent a tweet out earlier, which riled up some members of the LawTube community. And I was going to talk about this in a bit. I'm going to get there soon. I wanted to talk about the Elon Kerfuffle first, where I said that a blanket pardon that's pre-charge is not binding. Doesn't take effect. That's what I said. And I meant it. I will explain what I meant by that. I left it just a blanket. I said a blanket pre-charge pardon is not binding. And I stand by that conviction. I stand by that. I don't care how many members of the LawTube sphere disagree with me, because I already saw that potentially criminal Sean was implying that he loved to come on this show and debate me on this issue, implying that he's on the side that they are effective. And I said, not so much. But I'll get into it in a bit. My blanket pardon disagreement, looking at Article 2, Section 2, Chapter 1, the key word standing out is offenses, not charges. I elaborate more in my reply on X. All right, we'll talk about it. We'll get there soon. Let me get to Elon first. I really wanted to get in on Elon, but the reason I only shared that now was because I wanted to share with you all the perspective with respect to Trump. With respect to the hostages still not being released despite Trump issuing a pardon. So, in case you didn't hear, during one of the rallies, Elon supposedly gave the old Sig Heil high five in a way that was calling to mind that he was, giving the secret message of giving a high five to every Yahtzee out there. And what he did, in case you missed it, was he went like this and put his hand up. He might have done it twice. It's a little unclear to me, actually, what exactly he said or did. But sorry, OC's Waxer. Pointed out a mustache. Your blanket statement about blanket pardons are blanket wrong. Sorry for this wet blanket on your stream. I got evidence that I'm right. So I don't know. I didn't mean I want to debate like Pisco. We can discuss like friends. I know. I'd love to see President Trump walk up to the end of jail and say, "Let my people go." That would be awesome. We're gonna get into the pardon thing. Let me do Elon first. I want to take care of the Elon thing. It's not that long a story. So I'm going to take care of Elon. It'll take me less than 10 minutes. I wanted to share 2 clips. This is a nice little breakdown here. This is an initial breakdown.
So there's clips going around on mainstream and social media of Elon doing what appears to be a Hitler salute. And I want to show you just how easily editing can make something appear much worse than it actually is. First, check out this clip from a popular reel going around right now.
That looks bad.
Making it happen. Thank you.
Did you notice where it cuts off? Now I'm going to show you the full clip.
The elections, they come and go. Some elections are, important, some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
So my heart goes out to you. That's what he's saying. My heart goes out to you. Now, most people didn't actually see this happen live. Obviously, this got such a big story that. But what he's saying, that's why he's touching his heart. He's not even pledging fealty to Trump. He's talking to the crowd, saying, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you. That's what he's doing there. That's why he actually, says those words. My heart goes out to you. But it's all of a sudden now, he's like Himmler or something, according to the left.
That's first. The Nazi salute does not involve putting your palm on your heart.
Right.
This is a Nazi salute.
It's more of a Roman salute. Actually, the Romans, a lot of people have been saying it's a Roman salute, but the Romans would actually pound the fist, from what I recall. They would pound the heart and then put the hand up. But there's no involvement of the heart in the Nazi salute. And the Roman salute that some people have been saying, I don't think that's accurate, because I think they pound the heart and then come up. He wasn't doing either of those. He wasn't calling back to 1930s Germany. He wasn't calling back to BC times Rome. He was calling back to Elon, thinking what's going through Elon's head. That's clearly what's happening there. He's like, my heart goes out to you. I never done it like 7 times, so I guess I'm a Yahtzee too.
Now, there's 2 ways to interpret Elon's actions. You can either believe that he was doing the Nazi salute and he did it improperly, or you can believe that it was an innocent moment where a man who is somewhat awkward was excited and wanted to show the crowd that his heart was with them, as he said himself explicitly in the audio. Now, we're going to see...
Which, the fact that he says it in the moment explicitly in the audio kind of clarifies the question, I think. That's just me. Like, this is you want to take in context the words that he's saying in the moment that he's performing the supposedly sus action.
See misrepresentations like this a lot over the next 4 years. So I have invitations to both the pro-Trump and the anti-Trump camp. For the anti-Trumpers, just be skeptical of what you hear, because for the last 10 years, we've all been told that Trump is literally Hitler. But the same people that said he was literally Hitler were also smiling and waving for the camera during the inauguration today. I'm not asking you to be blindly optimistic that Trump is going to be a good president. Just be skeptical of the people that tell you that the world is ending, as they are doing in this clip. And for the pro-Trump camp, a lot of us are really excited, which is great. But half the country doesn't see what we're excited about. And they've been told for 10 years that everything is going to end if Trump is in office. So now they're seeing shadows and they're turning them into demons. And the thing to recognize is that these people aren't stupid. They're just scared.
No, they're stupid. I think you're being too generous. They are stupid. It's okay to call people stupid. They're stupid.
And you don't help.
They're not engaging in critical analysis. That's what leaves you stupid. That's what it is. Now you can say that we should treat them with kindness and grace or whatever.
Someone that's scared by yelling at them.
And that's fair. You don't have to yell at them, but you don't have to start pretending that these guys are sharp tools.
Yes, logic, facts, and truth matter, but so do emotions. And no logical change can happen without emotional safety being established first. Think about it. If it was a friend or family in your life and you knew that they were being misled, how would you treat them? You probably want to be patient, kind, and gentle because they're already scared. So we don't need to also make them feel rejected.
But they've been rejected. I'm just saying. They've been rejected. They have. They have been. And many of them are, whether you want to say they're motivated by fear or whatever it is that they're at, that's causing them to lash out, many of them are being overtly hostile and basically saying, no, we're not going to be friends, as if this is like a career, this is like a life aspiration for so many people on the right. Can we still be friends? No. Oh, boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. Boo freaking who. So we talk about people on the what do you on the left who are trying to attach this ridiculous claim to what it is that as far as Elon's actions. I'm just going to show this last 3-minute clip here. Even people defending Elon, a lot of them don't realize what he was doing. Elise Stefanik, during a confirmation from becoming U.S. ambassador, was being questioned by Congressman Murphy from I don't know where or care about Elon earlier today. So let's check that out. She stood pretty tall. I'm not going to kid you.
Think of Elon Musk, perhaps the president's most visible advisor, doing 2 Heil Hitler salutes last night at the president's televised rally.
No, Elon Musk did not do those salutes. I was not at the rally, but I can tell you I've been at many rallies with Elon Musk, who loves to cheer when President Trump says we need to send our U.S. space program to Mars. Elon Musk is a visionary. I'm looking forward to his work in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and look forward to looking how we can.
It's DOGE, by the way. It's not DOGE. Everyone says DOGE because that's how it looks like it should read, but it's government efficiency, which is a hard G, not a soft G. So it really is DOGE. I'm just saying. It's DOGE. No, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be contrarian. I heard a lot of folks say DOGE. It's a hard G. I mean, it's government, as in government. It's not government. It's not dog, it's DOGE. I'm just saying. I think most people say DOGE, and I think, no offense, you're all just wrong. That's all. I mean, it's like people who say GIF for GIF, which no, it's GIF. It's a GIF. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows. There's no real disputing this point. If you do, you can dispute it. You're just flat out wrong.
Can be more efficient and effective, but that is simply not the case. And to say so is the American people are smart. They see through it. They support Elon Musk. We are proud to be the country of such successful entrepreneurs. That is one of our greatest strengths as Americans.
Let me share with you what a few Americans have said about it. Evan Kilgore, a right-wing political commentator, wrote on X, "Holy crap, did Elon Musk just Heil Hitler at the Trump inauguration rally? This is incredible. We are so back."
This is like saying, this argument he's making here, I'll let him finish his ridiculous argument.
Andrew Torba, who's the founder of the right-wing Christian nationalist social platform Gab, said incredible things are happening as he...
Christian nationalist platform Gab? Gab is now... What?
Nationalist social platform Gab said...
Gab is now an alt. This is news to me. That's alt-right now. That's Yahtzees is Gab, you doofus.
Incredible things are happening.
As in the social media platform Gab. That now is now, I guess, he's, I guess, the head Yahtzee. I don't know what the hell that means.
As he amplified the visual, the Proud Boys chapter in Ohio posted the clip on a Telegram channel with the text "Heil Trump." A chapter of the white nationalist group White Lives Matter posted it on Telegram. "Thanks for hearing us, Elon. The white flame will rise again." I could keep going.
If I was Elise Stefanik at this point, what I would say to this guy is, there's a lot of stupid people who misinterpret things, no matter how obvious they are. Some of them are Yahtzees, and some of them are Democratic congressmen. That doesn't change the reality of what was happening in the moment.
Over and over last night, white supremacist groups and neo-Nazi groups in this country rallied around that visual.
Who cares?
Does it concern you that those elements of the neo-Nazi and white supremacist element in the United States believe that what they saw last night was a neo-Nazi salute?
No, because just because they and you are similarly stupid. So you're both idiots. That doesn't change. There's a lot of idiots, unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle. Far too many. There's a higher percentage on your side, much higher percentage. But, a few KKK people get elected to Congress, but lots of doofuses like yourself get elected on behalf of the Democrats. So, yeah, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. But that doesn't change. Your perception does not change reality when trying to interpret someone else's actions. This is a very important thing to remember in life in general. When someone engages in actions, the perception, especially if it's an unintended perception, if it's intended perception, and I think that's what they're trying to imply, that there was an intent to display this perception, which is just a ridiculous take considering everything we've ever seen from Elon. No one assumes. There's tons of pictures of AOC with her hand up, Barack Obama with his hand up, Hillary and Joe Biden with their hands up, but no one takes it as, oh, this is a Sig Heil moment. It's the stupidest thing in the world. And the fact that they had there, just because someone might want to take it that way, doesn't magically change the intent or what the perspective is. This is just nonsense. And Elise Stefanik does a fairly good job here in refusing to take the bait.
What concerns me is these are the questions you believe are most important to ask.
That's not a bad answer.
Ambassador. I have a very strong record when it comes to combating anti-Semitism. We just had a historic election where President Trump earned historic support from American voters because of his strong leadership combating anti-Semitism, which has been a scourge across the country, skyrocketing since October 7th.
Mostly from the left.
So I intend to bring moral clarity to this position and continue to speak out as a voice, as a beacon of light, condemning anti-Semitism at the United Nations, which is representative of President Trump's record and President Trump's promises that he made on the campaign trail.
You are right. These are the questions I choose to ask because I think that your work and the administration's work on anti-Semitism only comes with real impact and credibility if it holds both right and left accountable.
You don't hold the left accountable. You never do. When have you held the left accountable?
Simply don't believe that if a member of the squad made that same gesture last night, that there wouldn't be commentary from you and others.
There might be commentary, but there wouldn't be questions. There wouldn't be questions at a congressional hearing, idiot.
So I want to make sure that our work has credibility, and credibility comes with calling anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism behavior out.
Thank you. We really need you to defend us, jerk.
When it comes from both the right and the left.
Idiots.
Let me just turn to one issue that has come up several times and ask you for a quick response.
Yeah, I think that's the end of this. That's the end of that. Okay. All right. So just in case I wasn't crystal clear with this, no, it was definitely not an anti-Semitic salute. It wasn't anything of the kind. He was clearly saying, "My heart goes out to you." It's actually a heartwarming gesture. If you just listen to what he's saying, but no one ever actually wants to hear words if they can spin a story around it, which is clearly what's happening here. So, yeah. I think that Elon mentioned once the Sudetenland, he tipped his hand. Come on, man. He did mention the Sudetenland once. That's true. Make critical thinking great again. That would be nice, Ellie. They're tools, not sharp. Yes. Well said. I didn't think of that. That's a good one. Trump haters will find any little thing to make bad. Is Trump perfect? No, but he is the best thing for the country right now. Elon is Elon. Elon wasn't doing anything wrong. So your Boomer News is showing Doge has a soft G because it's a meme. See also Dogecoin and the originator of Doge, which was the best boy. I don't know what Dogecoin was standing for, though. You're drawing all sorts of assumptions. It could be two words that spelled the same and pronounced differently. Ooh. Glad to see me at home without Lady Law just drive you and keep you out of a ditch. Thank you very much. He's referring to the fact on the way down. On the way down, when I was driving the snow and the sleet, I was scheduled to go live at 4:25, and at 4:24, in the back of my car. This is part of what I was telling over my story. The back of my car. This is what it did. Okay, driving along, I feel my car start to skid. The back started to skid this way. Like, oh, it's like I'm just rolling this way. So then I spun out, started spinning this way, and back, and then all of a sudden a hard spin around until I was literally 180 degrees the wrong direction. I see cars coming at me. They all were slowing to a stop. And then I kept rolling out until I had spun like 270. I was facing the highway I was driving on and rolling backwards into the median. And I was like, this is pretty scary. But yeah, thank God. Thank God, no damage to myself personally or even to my vehicle. So, yeah, I was watching. It's Doge like the Dogecoin crypto. It's irony. I guess so. Okay. With you on GIF, but Doge creators are saying Doge. I'm just saying that technically, if one of you wanted to correct me, the real way to correct me is to take if you're trying to correct me, the way you correct me is not by saying, Joe, it's Doge because of the coin or because of whatever. No, the real way to correct me is if you're really right, Joe, then it's not Doge. It should be Doug because it's of, and the O doesn't make an O sound. It makes a short vowel sound of the So you should have said to me, Joe, it's not. it's O as Department of, so it should be Doug, if anything. Or Dugga. Efficient. Dougie. It's Dougie. That's what it really is. It's Dougie. Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah, it's Dougie. That's what it is, basically. And in case you missed it, by the way, Vivek has dropped out of Dougie. That doesn't sound right at all. Oh, my God. The words coming out of my mouth. Yeah, so he dropped out of Dougie. And he announced his run to become governor of Ohio. We wish him well. Definitely wish him well. I think he'd make an excellent governor. Proud Boys chapter in Ohio. PB suit exposed more undercover Fed running operations than citizens. Isn't the Ohio PR group by proxy the same? Likely. Yeah, probably. I'll be sure to say FUBAR instead of FUBAR. There you go. FUBAR. Thank you. Yes. See, at least Barracuda's, he was getting it. Credibility. The hoax Whitmer kidnapping in Michigan was run by an FBI agent quoted saying, "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Sent to persecute the J6 political hostages afterwards." Yep and yep. Isn't Elon's father Jewish? I don't. They call Trump an anti-Semite, and he has, all his grandkids are Jewish. Not all of them, but all of them from Ivanka. His daughter converted. If you need tips on winter driving, please ask. I don't need tips on winter driving. I need wheels that aren't spinning. By your logic, it would be, there you go. There you go. I don't know how you managed to put the O like that, but good job, you, Janella. It should be Dougie. Right. Not Doug. Yeah. It is Dougie. There you go. We got to Dougie. Let me do a quick check here, make sure I'm not missing anything. We're good over there. Okay, fine. Let's get into the pardons before the people arguing with me, the lawyers arguing with me, leave. Elon says Doge like the coin. You can check the video I'm saying we're taking those to Mars. Just because you create something doesn't mean it doesn't. Trump created MAGA, and he's not always MAGA. Just saying. It's part of what I was talking about today. How is Lawgic like in a It's Loge, like in a theater. It's a Loge. But this is an acronym. It's not a word. Hog, frog, dog, log. Hog, frog, dog, log does not equal, I don't know what you're trying to say. Joe, you're forgetting Dougie is part of the government. Government folks pronounce things the way they want. I worked for NIAID. We called it NIAD, which is, where's the second I, Joe? Where's the I? Where's the I, Joe? Where's the I? The I is not dotted, that's for sure. All right. Let's get into the pardon thing. I want to get into the pardon thing. I really want to get to that. I have so much to talk about these pardons. I can't even begin to tell you. So much to talk about on these pardons. So in case you missed it, in case you've been in case you were kidnapped and left in a ditch somewhere, a car that spun out, and missed everything that happened in the last 48 hours. Yesterday morning, was it yesterday morning? Well, it's still today. So that means it makes it yesterday, right? Monday morning, we learned that Joseph R. Biden had issued a pardon to Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, and the entire J6 Select Committee, as well as the 2 police officers who testified before the J6 Select Committee. And when he made the announcement of these pardons, he gave a lengthy explanation behind it. A lengthy explanation behind the pardons. Let's pull up what he wrote here. Now, I don't have a copy of the pardon themselves, which is frustrating. I'm not going to kid you. Don't have a copy of the pardon themselves. I really want to see that much more than anything else. Let's do it this way. Okay, this is what he wrote. For me, released in January 20, statement of President Joe Biden, our nation relies on dedicated, selfless public servants every day. They're the lifeblood of our democracy. Yet alarmingly, public servants have been subject to ongoing threats and intimidation for faithfully discharging their duties. In this case, their duties was to spread crap and spread lies and harm the American public. So that was basically what was part of their job. In certain cases, some have even been threatened with criminal prosecutions, including General Mark A. Milley, Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, and the members of the staff of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack in the United States Capitol. These public servants have served our nation with honor and distinction and do not deserve to be the targets of unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. And this is an administration which damn well knows everything there is to know about targeting unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. How so? Walk us through it. What are you talking about? General Milley served our nation for more than 40 years, served in multiple command and leadership posts, and deploying to some of the most dangerous parts of the world to protect and defend democracy before he committed treason by lying to Trump about how many troops we had abroad, and then displaying complete incompetence in the Afghanistan withdrawal, which resulted in the deaths of 13 servicemen and women and serious injury to dozens more. As chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he guided our armed forces through complex global security threats and strengthened our existing allies while forging new ones. For more than half a century, Dr. Fauci has been developing diseases that he can spread across the world in his service to our country. He saved countless lives by managing the government's response, suppressing health crises. It's crises. It is crises, yeah. Multiple health crises, including HIV/AIDS, as well as Ebola and Zika viruses. During his tenure as my chief medical advisor, he helped the country tackle a once-in-a-century pandemic. The United States is safer and healthier because of him, no matter how much science might tell you otherwise. On January 6, 2021, American democracy was tested when a mob of insurrectionists, not insurrectionists, which that could invalidate this whole thing, just kidding, attacked the Capitol in an attempt to overrun a fair and free election by force and violence. In light of the significance of that day, Congress established the Bipartisan Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack in the United States Capitol, to investigate and report upon the facts, circumstances, and causes of the insurrection. The Select Committee fulfilled this mission with integrity and a commitment to discovering the truth, which was a joke because everyone knew that they were just partisan hacks and didn't care at all about discovering the truth. Rather than accept accountability, those who perpetrated the January 6th attack have taken every opportunity to expose the truth about the committee by undermining and intimidating those who participate in the Select Committee in an attempt to rewrite history, erase the stain of January 6th for partisan gain, and seek revenge, including by threatening criminal prosecutions. Literally, what they say, what they have done, they accuse their enemies of attempting to do. This is your classic confession through projection. The other side hasn't had a chance to do it, but we know what we've been doing. We know what we would do if we were in their shoes. They haven't done anything. We know what they would do. We know what we would do if we were in their shoes. So that's why we have to stop it. Disgusting, embarrassing. What a complete joke of a human being this is. I believe in the rule of law, and I'm optimistic that the strength of our legal institutions will ultimately prevail over politics. You don't believe in that at all. You didn't believe in it when the rule of law said that Hunter Biden was guilty. So no, you don't believe in the rule of law. You're full of crap. But this guy issued over 8,000 pardons. Big believer in the rule of law. Big believer. This is the return to normalcy. Please remind yourself for a moment, when he was running for this office that he just embarrassed beyond belief, his whole point was return to normalcy, return to normalcy, return to normalcy. This is normalcy in a Joe Biden world. Baseless and politically motivated. So I'm optimistic to that the strength of our legal institutions will ultimately prevail over politics, but these are exceptional circumstances. I cannot in good conscience do nothing. So full of crap. You're afraid of where it's all going to ultimately point. Baseless and politically motivated investigations wreak havoc on the lives, safety, and financial security of targeted individuals and their families, even when individuals have done nothing wrong, and in fact have done the right thing and will ultimately be exonerated. The mere fact of being investigated and prosecuted can irreparably damage reputations and finances. Oh, so basically that's what you were doing to Trump. That's what you're trying to say. That's what you're trying to say. What is this sentence here? Even when individuals have done nothing wrong, and in fact have done the right thing, and will ultimately be exonerated, the mere fact of being investigated or prosecuted can irreparably damage reputations and finances. Why that's not even saying for the last 2 years about Trump. This corrupt, slimy human being. This is why I exercise my authority under the Constitution to pardon General Mark A. Milley, Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, members of Congress and staff who served in the Select Committee and the U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police, and officers who testified. So this is who we got: Mark Milley, General Milley, Fauci, members of Congress and staff who served on the Select Committee. I don't know what that means. And the U.S. Capitol, I don't know what staff means in this context. There's a lot of staff. I mean, does that mean secretaries? I don't know who's getting this thing. And the U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who testified before the Select Committee. The issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as admission of my guilt or for any offense. As an admission of guilt for any offense. You can say whatever the hell you want to say, but it clearly is what it is. We heard 4 years ago about how that's an admission of guilt. That's what everyone on the left was saying. Our nation owes these public servants a debt of gratitude for their tireless commitment to our country. What a complete jackass, who clearly no one believes him or the left. That's what we saw on election day. No one believes these idiots. Nobody believes them. They still keep talking. Now, these are not the actual pardons per se. That is a statement from the White House. I'm trying to dig up the actual physical pardon. If you have a copy of the pardon that you can DM me while I'm engaging this conversation, I would love if someone could DM me on X. A copy. I'm giving you all homework. A copy of the pardons that were issued to Fauci, the Select Committee, Milley, because I really want to look at the language in those pardons per se, so I can have a better understanding as to the potential validity or invalidity thereof. Because I have a lot of thoughts on this, which is my thoughts are unique and my own, and they're not consistent with a lot of people in the law tube sphere, as you've seen in the comments here, potentially Criminal Sean on civil law, and doubtless several other people would disagree with me in my take as to whether or not a blanket pardon for uncharged offenses is a thing that works under the law. Now, this is what I'm going. This is why did I write that? What am I referring to specifically? Let me pull it up here for you. I chose my words very carefully. What I wrote was a blanket preemptive pardon before charges are brought has no legal effect. I stand by this. I think this is true. I think this is accurate. It has no legal effect. But yet everyone seems to think that it does have effect. I have said many times here on this channel, and I likely will say it many times more in the future. When we are talking about areas of law that are not tested, the law is ill-defined. It's only through there being court decisions that we actually know what the law is and can use those decisions as guidance that tell us what the law is. So, and I've analogized it and I said, forget about law for a second and just think about defining your relationship with people that you meet. Okay? You meet someone, let's say over here, okay? This situation, I just went down to Washington. I met Diligent Denizen for the first time in my life when I went down there. We hung out, had a good time, exchanged numbers. So in case, I need to reach each other for something, boom, that's it. Is this a guy who I would call without texting first? This is a relatively new concept because it used to be there was no such thing as texting, but now it seems to be in vogue that before you call someone, you text them. The boundaries of that particular relationship are ill-defined, and they're very amorphous. And the way that they end up becoming defined is through the actions of the people involved. And it's only through those actions that we end up creating the reality of a particular status. So if he was to call me and I would pick up and just start talking with him, that starts defining the nature of our relationship, that you don't have to text me before you call me. You can just call. If he gets on the phone and he calls me, the first thing I'm like, wow, dude, you're calling me? You didn't even text. That would give a different definition. Before he actually takes the step of calling or texting, I'm sort of in this, it's sort of an ill-defined area. And it's only once an action is taken and not challenged that establishes what the norm is. So that action could be texting before calling, or it could be a phone call, but that's establishing the nature as to like what is acceptable to both sides here. It's similar in law. When there's a law which can be read a couple of ways, when the public starts reading it and acting as if this is what the law is, that has a presumption of being the law to the public, and people will start to mirror that over time. Does that make it the law? No, because let's assume someone breaks from that norm, whatever the norm is, and they're brought to court for breaking that norm. That's when you get an official declaration from the court, which becomes the law of the land that the court has jurisdiction over. And that's setting up what the law is, certainly if it gets reviewed and appealed. So when we're talking about pardons and trying to understand amorphous law as to how does a pardon work, who can a pardon apply to, how does a pardon have to be applied, How broad can a pardon be? Does it have to be for a charged offense? Can it be for just a general area? Can it just be in all things? I'm pardoning you for everything. We can have all sorts of philosophical conversations back and forth until there is a definitive statement from the courts, at the very least, a circuit court. At the very least, a circuit court. You don't know what the law is because you don't have a stated rule of law. You just have people speculating about what the law is. Certainly before it comes before a district court, the lowest federal court, you have the public believing something is one way. But if it's amorphous and can fairly be read a completely different way, no one knows what the law is. We saw this with the obstruction law, right? We saw this with the obstruction law that was applied to the J6 defendants. J6 defendants, there's a statute that's written 18 U.S.C. 1519 C2, comes out that this statute is written for the whole Enron situation. In the Enron situation, there was, Enron was in facing potential criminal jeopardy. They start shredding documents to try and protect themselves from being held criminally liable. At the time, there was no law that prohibited the shredding. So they're shredding. Congress saw how they basically spent forever shredding countless documents, which were potentially incriminating, and they respond by writing a law, 18 U.S.C. 1519 C2, and they say if you're anticipating an official proceeding and you destroy documents in anticipation of that proceeding, that destruction itself, that action itself is its own crime. So you might think you're guilty of crime A. I'm afraid I'm going to be caught on crime A, so now I'm going to start destroying these documents. Well, that destruction of documents under 18 U.S.C. 1519 C is going to be the C1 and C2. That is now going to be considered obstruction, and it's its own separate crime, which has 10 years, 20 years. It's got a bunch of years. It's not a short crime. Just the act. Even if you didn't commit crime A, the act of destroying it is now under 18 U.S.C. 1519 is considered a serious crime, and that is something that you can be held accountable for. And if you look at the language of that particular statute, it's sort of amorphous. And for many, many years after it was written, I think, in the early aughts. So now everyone assumed this is talking about destroying documents. Along comes Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland says, if you read the technical language of this, it's really anyone who's obstructing a proceeding. It doesn't have to be destroying evidence. It's any form of obstructing a proceeding. On January 6th, there's a proceeding. That's a proceeding. That's a formal proceeding. And the people who are coming in there and protesting, the protesters, are trying to obstruct that and stop it from going forward. So I'm going to use that statute and try and apply it to the J6 defendants. Is this a fair usage of that statute or not? Well, until now, no one tried using it that way. This is the first time they ever tried doing it because they were so aggressive and trying to come after the J6 defendants. But this is the first time that we're taking this statute and trying to use it in a way that has nothing to do with destroying evidence. It's purely about a completely different type of act of no one is thinking that they're violating this law. Even if you knew every federal statute, which obviously no one knows every federal statute, but even if you knew what every federal statute was and how they had been traditionally interpreted, you never would have thought you were violating 18 U.S.C. 1519 C2. Until Merrick Garland gave his interpretation. And he takes that interpretation and uses it to levy charges against over 1,000 individuals, and all of them getting hit with this 18 U.S.C. 1519 C2. And the D.C. courts and circuit courts are all like, yeah, that works. That's a fair read. We're comfortable with that read. That now entrenches it as the law of the land. That becomes the law of the land until SCOTUS comes along in United States versus Fisher and says, no, that is not a reasonable read. That's a wrong read. And we don't think that that's a fair read of the statute. And they have all sorts of different legal concepts that are used, that are well established, like approaches towards interpreting a statute. It's sui generis, and he justum There's another one. They talk about different concepts they use as far as how to properly interpret a statute. And they say, no matter which way you're looking at this, the language of this statute does not support the reading that Merrick Garland wants to use or that was embraced by the D.C. Circuit Court. So these charges that are brought against Fisher and 1,000 other J6 defendants, not good. But the reason I'm walking you through this process here is that you could better understand how the law evolves as far as there's a common understanding of the law. Then Merrick Garland challenges it, and his challenge is initially upheld by the court and by the circuit court and ultimately rejected by the Supreme Court. Now we have an official statement as to what the law is. The law is that it's basically designed for people who are trying to destroy evidence. It might not be destroying documents. It could be that if you think, you have a piece of material that has blood that you're afraid is going to be used to incriminate you, that destroy or incriminate a friend of yours, that you destroy that also is probably obstruction under the reading of it. But someone going to a proceeding that's going on there and protesting, that's not at all in the same category under U.S. v. Fisher. So it's important to understand the difference between what was the law in what did the law mean before SCOTUS came in here? What did the law mean before Merrick Garland came along? What did the law mean on January 1st, 2021? Well, the understood attachment had nothing to do with this type of obstruction. That was what was understood. Did that make that the law at that point in time? If someone went in and obstructed a trial, okay, they went in and pulled a fire alarm on a trial a week beforehand, a week before J6 ever happened. Could they be charged with 18 U.S.C. 1519 that they're trying to? Well, no one knows. No one knows, and it's all speculative. That's the stage we're at here now in trying to understand these pardons. We're at that stage that it's like there's no J6 yet. And now we're trying to understand this 18 U.S.C. 1519, trying to say, what does the law mean? So all you have here is legal philosophers who understand how law is supposed to be interpreted, and they'll look to similar type of things and try and attaching that and saying, this is what the law is. This is what the law is. But nobody knows for certain because it hasn't gone through that process of someone saying, no, the law is something else. And then having those challenges dissected by one level court, a higher level court, and then the Supreme Court. In 2023, the law was 18 U.S.C. 1519 can be used for someone who obstructs a proceeding. The law literally changes the day that SCOTUS decides otherwise. But so you have an initial stage here where the law is probably not like that because common usage, common custom, the way anyone's been looking at that statute, no one would have used it for someone to pull a fire alarm. For Jamal Bowman, when he pulls a fire alarm and tries to stop Congress, no one would have applied 18 U.S.C. 1519 there. Then Merrick Garland comes along, and the court starts upholding it during that stage of history. Jamal Bowman's action of pulling a fire alarm technically could be 18 U.S.C. 1519. Along comes Supreme Court and says, no, that's wrong. We had this different perspective. So now you have a better understanding, I think, as to how the law kind of changes, and until someone challenges it, until someone tries changing it, when does the challenge start? It only starts when Merrick Garland comes along and starts raising these challenges. And initiates it and says, look, everyone's been reading it one way. I want to have a different read of it. I'm going to try and get this crammed through in the court. And then when it gets some sort of blessing from the court that they're like, yeah, these charges are allowed to stick against the J6 defendants, that's what makes it now a new way, a new understanding of the law that becomes the law until it's overturned at a higher level. If the Supreme Court never took that case, that would be the law today. That is a type of obstruction that 18 U.S.C. 1519 would apply to. So whatever way someone would have fallen on guessing the law, think about this for a second. If on January 6th, someone's going into the building there, Okay. One of these J6 defendants who hopefully, all of them should get out today, right? Someone going in there calls his lawyer, says, hey, is it okay for me to go in there? The guy's like, well, I was just looking at 18 U.S.C. 1519. It might be that it's a crime for you to go in there and you're obstructing. Could be that it's a crime. You get hit with that crime. And other lawyer would be sitting there saying, are you an idiot? No one's ever applied the law that way. That's impossible. That can't possibly. Well, I think it could be. No, who's right there? Which of those two lawyers arguing about whether or not this is obstruction is right? Well, a year and a half later, it looks like the one who says it is a violation of law is right. And then when Supreme Court finally comes in here and says what they say, then the one who said it's not a violation of law is the one who's right. So now we haven't even had the thing questioned yet. The Merrick Garland moment hasn't come. The Merrick Garland moment with respect to these pardons will only come if someone tries charging these people who are pardoned. That's when we first start going down this road of knowing what the law is. We have these pardons that are given, these blanket pardons given to Liz Cheney and Fauci and Mark Milley and Benny Thompson and Pelosi and Kinzinger and these DC police, these blanket pardons that are just thrown at them. Are they good law or not? Well, we have established custom. The established custom has been that it is good. That has been the established custom, that it is good. Where do we see that? We see that with Civil War, that there was a pardon for the folks who engaged in the Civil War. For the Southerners who engaged in the Civil War, they all got blanket pardons. We sort of see it, not exactly see it, sort of, not exactly. And I'm going to get to that distinction. We sort of see it. Blanket pardons for people who engaged in the Civil War. Pardon from Ford to Nixon. Never been charged, gets a big, nice, fat blanket pardon from Ford. Is that a good pardon or not? Answer is we don't really know. No one really knows. And unless he gets charged, we don't know if until a court decides, we don't know what the law is. And we're in this stage of obstruction. There's no Merrick Garland that came along and tried reading the law this way. So someone comes along and says, you know what? I know President Biden tried issuing these pardons. I don't think that works. I think that if you want to issue a pardon has to be for a specific crime that's been charged. And it has to be expressly stated what the crime, what you're pardoning him for. For crying out loud, no one knows what they did wrong. What are they? So how can you pardon someone maybe Biden doesn't know that they committed murder during the course of their duties? Can he pardon them when he doesn't know what they did wrong? If there were charges that were brought against them, and he's like, I don't think they're guilty of these charges, then this is the argument that I'm making to point out as to why a blanket pardon should not work. If someone is charged with a crime, is charged with a particular offense, and someone was raising up before how the language over there is offense, not for a crime. Okay, that's fine. But the reality is, if you don't know what the crime is, how can you pardon someone for a crime that you don't know they committed? That doesn't make any. What is it? Because there's an angelic status over them? That no matter if they murdered thousands of people, or in the case of Anthony Fauci butchered thousands of dogs and set up for countless people to die. So and Biden doesn't know this. So he's able to pardon him without even knowing what the hell he's pardoning? How does that even work? Let's assume that we would find out, let's say Anthony Fauci would write a book where he'd be like, yeah, I intentionally created virus X for the purpose of fulfilling Gates' dream of reducing the population by a certain percentage. Because, that needs to be done for the good of society. Intentionally, I wanted to, and I basically set up that millions of people could die. Let's say he would write a book confessing to all that. And Biden's like, holy hell, I didn't know this. So you're telling me that his blanket pardon serves to protect Fauci from that? How can he be pardoning someone when he doesn't know what the crime is? When there's a charge that's been levied and brought and filed, he can say, I don't want him, I'm pardoning him from this particular charge. When there's no stated charge, that ability to just issue a pardon becomes a lot more tenuous. All the more so if you don't even state what the nature of activity is that you're blessing. This is one of the reasons I asked folks if they can help, and probably by now someone has shared with me, if they can share with me a copy of the pardon. Let me put in here. I think someone shared with me a link. I thank you, Cage Warren Moffat, who shared with me a link. So I'm going to put in here ways that you can search someone and get a copy of the pardon. That didn't work. I got 18 results here. Which Office of the Pardon Attorney. Print cancel. I was searching the DOJ site. Yeah, this is because I want to find the language there. And I understand what the argument that a lot of folks in law will make. It has worked before. Where we see it work. We saw it work by the Civil War. We saw it work by Ford. Give me to Nixon. And my response to that would be like, but did it work? Or was it just not tested? There's a belief that it works. There's an expectation that it works. This is the link that Cage Warren Moffat gave me. He said you just put in the person you want, such as Anthony Fauci. Maybe I have to put in Anthony Fauci? I don't think that's going to be any better. Anthony S. Fauci. Yeah, I don't think this is working. I don't know why. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Oh, okay. Uncivil saying he sent it to me. So the point that I would make. Oh, this is it. Thank you, brother. So the point that I would make here is that, yeah, I understand that we all think it worked. And because people thought it worked, no one tested it. But that doesn't mean it actually does work. And you can say that's a matter of semantics, because if everyone thinks that glass is bulletproof, so everyone shoots around that glass because they're like, there's no point in shooting through it because it's bulletproof. Well, it has the effect of being bulletproof in the sense that it causes people to act differently because they believe the glass is bulletproof. So in that sense, if no one wants to charge anything with this, in that case, if no one wants to, thank you very much, Kurt. If everyone, and to the rest of you who tried getting me these links, I thank you as well. If anyone wants to charge this, wants to charge in violation of a stated pardon, it's only once that pardon is tested that we actually know and measured by a court that we actually know whether or not it's a valid pardon. Case in point, Hunter Biden receives a pardon. It's recognized by the court as a basis to overturn the convictions. So now no one really challenged the legitimacy of that pardon, nor should they have, because for all intents and purposes, as applied to those specific crimes, which had already been charged, it seems fair and reasonable, and it's hard to argue that he's being pardoned for those crimes that he had been charged, in addition to being pardoned for anything in the last 10 years. But let's say he's not aware that Hunter Biden. It seems kind of difficult to understand conceptually how one individual, even if when we say that the president has power to pardon, there's a very cogent argument to be made that the president has to understand what they are pardoning, rather than just saying, I pardon this person and confer upon them angel status for their entire lives. The same. Otherwise, if someone has a power to pardon something like that, why would they not have the power? If you think that pardon makes sense, why would they not have the power to pardon anything that they may do in the next 50 years? I hereby pardon. Let's say President Trump right now says, I hereby pardon all of my grandchildren for any crimes they may commit sometime in the future, at any point during their lives. Why is that ineffective? Which everyone understands that would not work. Why would that be ineffective? And the answer to why it would be ineffective is because he doesn't know what the crimes are. He has no way of knowing what the crimes are. So everyone understands conceptually that would not work, right? I don't think anyone would actually try to make a good faith argument that pardoning someone for crimes that they have yet to commit, and we have no idea what they may be, that is something that seems beyond the power of pardoning, which means that at least we're recognizing that the pardon power, while it is plenary, has some limitation to it. It cannot be for future activity, right? Some people question whether the president has power to pardon himself individually or not, which I think is an interesting question. I can hear arguments on both sides of that. And my point to you is the same way you cannot pardon someone for a crime they have yet to commit because you don't know what crimes they're going to commit. You cannot pardon someone for a crime that you do not know they committed in the past. It doesn't make any sense to assume that it should work that way. And I'm not alone in this perception. I'm not just flying solo on this. This was my own concept I came up with on my own. And as someone actually responded, I don't know who this individual is, but he gave me a quote. And this is someone who goes by the name Andrew on Twitter. He's known as Thresher King. I don't know where this is from well, I'll read to you the quote. I'll share it with you. From his pinned tweet, quote, pardons must at least circumscribe the crime or crimes as part of the pardon. You have to say what the crimes are. The broad blanket pardons being ripped off by the Biden administration are not constitutional and therefore have no effect. The power of the president to pardon is one of many that were carried over from English law. And as Frank Bowman of the University of Missouri argues, such a pardon has no effect if the king lacks sufficient knowledge of the crime or was deceived into issuing the pardon. Which that makes sense too, right? If imagine someone comes along and he's like, oh yeah, the reason you should pardon me is because I saved your son's life. And he issues the pardon, and then he learns that he actually is the one who almost killed his son. So would you say, oh, and he obtains the pardon through deceitful measures, and he tricks the president into giving him a pardon? Would anyone say, well, you're up Feces Creek? Maybe. Some people probably would. But I don't think that makes sense. Because the purpose of the pardon power is to basically say the president has a special and unique power that is his and his alone. That power is that he has the ability to look at a crime that someone committed and say, I forgive you for committing this crime. To me, that's implicit in what a pardon is. You did this that everyone thinks you should be punished for. I am forgiving you for doing this. Not I'm forgiving you for being in existence. for anything that may have happened. One, because a pardon is I'm pardoning your activity. I'm not pardoning you as an individual. I'm pardoning your activity. Continuing here. Pete Bayer further argues that such a broad pardon actually violates the due process clause of the United States Constitution. Peter Bayer, the due process bona fides of executive self-pardons and blanket pardons from the Faulkner Law Review, which I haven't read this. I haven't seen this. I don't know anything about this. I'm very curious about reading it. But the point that I'm making here is there is a broad assumption that these pardons are legitimate. The reason I wanted to look at these pardons is because I wanted to see just how broad they were. The broader they are, the more sus they are as far as whether or not they are viable. So when we're looking at this pardon here, which I'm going to pull up the pardons that Biden gave. So be it known that David A. Joseph Biden, this day, I, Joseph Biden, President, pursuant powers clause of the Constitution, have granted unto the members of Congress who served on the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States, the staff of the Select Committee, and the police officers in D.C. on the U.S. Capitol who testified for the Select Committee, a full and unconditional pardon for any offense against the United States which they may have committed or taken part in, arising from or any other matter related to activities of the subject matter of the Select Committee to investigation, January 16th, attacking the United States Capitol. Let's say he said, I'm so appreciative of their work on the J6 committee that I am pardoning them for any crimes they may have ever committed in their lives. Which he could, in theory, do, right? He can pardon, if you're saying his plenary power is unlimited, he certainly would have the power to do. He doesn't have to give a justification for why he's giving a pardon. He can just be like, I like this person. I want to hang out with him. It's going to be tough to do that if they're in jail. So I'm pardoning them. And that's part of his powers. But he has to be specifying. My point is, you have to be specifying what they are being pardoned for, not being pardoned. Now, you could say over here that when he specifies that he's pardoning them for actions they took that relate to the magic on the the subject matter of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol, anything related to that I'm pardoning you for is certainly more insulated, has a stronger protection than his blanket pardon to Hunter Biden for anything he's ever done in the last 10 years. Because anything he's ever done in the last 10 years is kind of ridiculous, right? We don't know if he literally started the fentanyl crisis and has poisoned and killed millions of people. But if he did, under federal law, he's pardoned. That's kind of ridiculous, right? Especially if, let's say, Biden, his father doesn't know about it. Forget about the familial relation between Hunter and Joe, but he just says, I'm pardoning X from all crimes they did committed in the last 10 years. I think that's ridiculous. Now, historians will point out and say that's the pardon that Ford gave to Nixon. He gave him that big, broad blanket pardon power for 10 years. Said anything he did in the last 10 years, I'm going to give you a pardon for. Was that pardon effective or not? Well, as far as whether or not that pardon worked, the answer is that that's before the J6 incident happened. And we're trying to understand 18 U.S.C. 1519. And people are assuming it works, much as people assume what the law is on 18 U.S.C. 1519. And then when it gets tested, then we actually start to learn, does it work, does it not work? And the only one who could make the ultimate determination on that is the Supreme Court of the United States. But along the way, other courts could weigh in and, in effect, create the law. But until someone challenges the validity of a pardon, nobody knows if it's valid or not. Nobody knows. We know certain types of pardons are definitely effective. We've seen the release of responding to this, seeing the pardon, so then we know that this pardon is working, right? But the reality is created based on how people act in a situation. No, I don't. He wasn't part of the J6 committee, was he? So no, I don't think he did. CX, you're looking for public message from me. Pardon info linked. I appreciate you guys sharing that pardon. That was the pardon. I'm just looking at the specific language in these different pardons. Uncivil linked me with all of these different pardons. This is for who? Let me see what he gave me. So the Anthony Fauci one is very broad. And I would say I don't think this is valid. Maybe he does. How can it be valid when you don't know what he did? You're at least describing the type of activity that he did. But that's why I'm saying that when it's a blanket act, I don't think that it makes sense to say that it works for even work in connection with this committee. So you're telling me that if Nancy Pelosi is on the committee, Benny Thompson's on the committee, he's like, oh my God, this person, I just found out they're about to testify something I don't want them to say, so I am going to have them killed. Joe Biden has no idea that he did it. How is that not deceptively obtaining a pardon from Joe Biden? Because, well, he gave a very broad pardon here. To me, conceptually, it doesn't make sense. Now, am I saying that I'm right about the law, that I'm right and they're wrong? What I'm saying is nobody knows at this stage. And it's much healthier. It's much healthier to come with an approach of, no, it doesn't work. Because if people come with an approach that it does not work, then at least it gets tested. And we see, does it really work or not? I would love to see this get tested. So this way we know the lane, the strength. It's in, and I'll tell you this much. I don't think that Trump is going to go after these people. I don't think he's going to send Pam Bondi after them. I don't think they're going to be charged. And I think that's a mistake. And the reason I think it's a mistake is because it helps him personally to actually see, does this work, does it not? And to have the test case not be on himself or on Eric Trump or on Don Jr., on Ivanka or Jared or some grandkid of his. It makes a lot more sense to test it out on these idiots. Right? If you're Donald Trump and you're looking 4 years down the line and you're expecting you're probably going to walk in the same path that Joe Biden just walked on January 20, 2025. And that when it comes January 20th, 2029, you're expecting to walk the exact same path because you know your political enemies are going to be coming after you. Would it not make sense to know whether or not this insurance works? And the only way you know that this insurance works is if you try seeing whether or not it works in a court of law. And you test it. You test it by prosecuting Liz Cheney. You test it by prosecuting for suborning perjury. This is nothing express here saying that these folks are protected from perjury, from suborning perjury. And I don't see what you have to lose. What do you have to lose? Say if you lose the case and the pardons are recognized, well, that just means your pardons are that much more effective. And if they say that, well, it's recognized to this degree and not that degree, it helps you better draft your own pardon. You know exactly what you need to do. It teaches you. The court will teach you what you need to do when you draft your pardon for your kids 4 years from now. Speaking of pardoning kids and family members, this is the one to Mark Milley. For any offenses against the United States, including any offenses under the United States Code, which he may have committed taking part during the period of January 1, 2014. This is a ridiculous broad. I would go after Milley on this. This is so stupid. So I don't care how many people he literally shot in the face. He's pardoned. That's the implication of this, as if Joe Biden knows that he's pardoning that. I don't think this works. I don't think this, it doesn't make until there's no philosophical reason. And the point that I'm making is the same way it should not work if he said, and I also pardon him for anything he does for the next 2 weeks. No one would think that works. Why? Why would that not work? Imagine he issued this pardon to Milley. Imagine he issued this pardon to Milley at the start of his administration. And he says, I'm issuing a pardon for any actions you take during the next 4 years. Would anyone think that that works? And I don't think anyone would say, I don't think anyone intelligent would be like, oh yeah, totally. He's got pardon power. Plenary. It's plenary. Why can't he give it? Why can't he give it? It's pardon power. I'll ask you this, and I'll follow up with one more question for you. What if there's an executive order from Trump saying, I hereby revoke the pardons that were issued by Joseph Biden for the J6 Select Committee? I hereby revoke them. He has plenary pardon power right now. Does that mean just to issue pardons? If he can grant clemency, because the clemency they were granted from, that applies as of today. So in theory, anything they were charged with, that gets immediately dismissed, but they haven't been charged with anything yet. So language is that the president should be the commander in chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and militias, several states, and ranking principal officer in each executive departments, upon any subject relating to the duties of the respective officers, and each have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. I mean, this is the language here, and it is broad. It's very broad. But why would this not apply to something in the future? The reason it wouldn't is because it's an undefined term. Anyway, that's why I cannot tell you definitively it's not the case. What I would say is if public perception is that it doesn't work on a broad landscape, it's actually more likely that it will fail. And there's no way that anyone knows it's wrong. Even if historically it's been recognized, that does not make it the law. It just makes an understanding of the law. Just because no district attorney has tried prosecuting on it doesn't mean those district attorneys, it's like they looked at the glass, they thought it was bulletproof when it wasn't. So they didn't take any shots at it. If they took one shot, it would just go right through. That's my point. That's my point, and I'm sticking to it. What is this fourth one? Is this family? And by the way, obviously the same would apply for the pardons that he gave right before walking down the aisle there for the inauguration, when he issued a pardon to his brother and everyone else in his family. I don't even know who these folks are, but basically issuing them a full and unconditional pardon for any nonviolent offenses against the United States which they may have committed or taken part of during the period of January 1, 2014 through the date of this pardon. Ridiculous. But this is embarrassing. This is a complete and total embarrassment for the Democrats, and it's an embarrassment for Joe Biden. It's embarrassment for them it's an embarrassment that, they're sitting there for years saying anyone who has, you give a pardon, that's a sign that you're guilty. That's a sign that you're guilty. Everyone knows that's a sign you did the crime. Why would you give a pardon otherwise? You don't need to give me a pardon. I don't need no pardon. Why would you give them a pardon unless they did something wrong? Is it a technical legal admission of guilt? No. But in the eyes of public perception, it sure as hell is. Now, this is the guy who, the shills him going out there saying, thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe Biden. You did such a great job, Joe Biden. This is utter humiliation for them. They were freaking out about the idea of Trump giving a pardon to his family, and he didn't. And they were like, oh, this corrupt guy is going to give a pardon to his family because they're so corrupt, and that's just what they're going to do. And he didn't. He had no way of knowing he's ever going to get reelected when he walked out of office on January 20th, 2021. Very easily could have granted pardons to Jared, to Ivanka, to Don Jr., to Eric, and potentially himself. It was very easy, but he didn't. And now this guy who represents the return to normalcy, who's introduced lawfare against former presidents and their families, is pardoning his own family. After being exposed, after saying he wouldn't pardon Hunter, and then pardoning Hunter. Everything about Joseph Biden from the day he started running for president, and frankly, for many, many years beforehand, has been an outright complete fraud and lie. And here's the fascinating thing about this entire incident. All of his fraud, all of his self-dealing, all of his self-interest has always been in utter darkness, like a snake, like a little rat. He would send Hunter Biden out to go do the influence peddling with Burisma and with China, CFC, all the stuff that he's doing. He did it with Romania. All the stuff he's doing, it's always through shell corporations. There's this shell corporation, that shell corporation, this shell corporation, that. And everyone's like, no, there's no smoke here. The right is crazy. Where's the proof? Where's the smoking gun? Where's the smoking gun? You don't know what you're talking about. It's not true. It's not true. And no, the whole Burisma thing, and you're misunderstanding the whole thing he did there. And Victor Shokin really was corrupt, and he was doing the right thing and standing up, defending him that he did nothing wrong. And all his stuff was always cloak and dagger. You couldn't even use his name. Had to refer to him as the 10% for the big guy. Why? Because he was so careful to try and insulate his image for these knucklehead morons who's sitting there lapping his boots and protecting his image of like, no, I'm just a good man. I just care about helping people. Come on, man. It's just about helping people. Come on. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Come on, man. And being everyone's old, trying to come off as if he's everyone's grandpa or uncle and all Uncle Joe and telling his funny old amusing stories. And sometimes he'll say something that's a little bit uncomfortably racist, but he doesn't mean it. He's one of the good ones. He's one of the good guys. And that was the image he crafted for himself. And the final act of his political career is to rip the mask off and be like, yeah, all I care about is myself and my family. And the rest of you can go F yourselves. And yeah, I'm pardoning them. There you go. They're pardoned. Hunter, pardoned. James Biden, pardoned. Sarah Jones Biden, pardoned. Valerie Biden Owens, pardoned. All of them, pardoned. Ha, 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 ha. It's utter humiliation. And it's a reflection of him knowing how many horrific stories would actually be exposed if they were scrutinized by any investigative body. And now that he has no more political clout, on the final day, the final hours of his political clout, the very last step he takes is to pull his mask off and be like, yeah, I was corrupt all along. And my brother was corrupt, and Hunter was corrupt, and I'm not letting him come after me for it. Or at least profess that I'm not letting you come after it with this pardon. And then the question is this pardon good? When he just gives a blanket pardon for all nonviolent offenses and he doesn't specify what activity, what crime, what nature, just nonviolent. That's, for all we know, if you just step outside the box, he has no idea what crimes they committed. He has no idea what crimes they committed. Certainly the leftists will tell us, oh, he was totally uninvolved. He was uninvolved. He was totally clean. Wasn't him. All that other nonsense. They were just selling his influence very successfully for many years without him ever helping them do it. It was just an illusion he was selling. The mask came off and it exposed that Democrats were either fools or liars and that he was completely corrupt all along. And frankly, that's what his legacy will be forevermore. That he is the most corrupt president we ever had. Ever. Not even close. Tries persecuting his political enemies with ridiculous built-up charges. Can compare this. They searched and tried finding any crime they could. And what did they find? Oh, he entered this billing thing a little bit that in a way that we're trying to interpret. It's a crime. This is what they found. He didn't store records in a way that we think is proper. This is what their crimes are, as opposed to literally just raking in millions of dollars for himself and his family. And selling influence to the most corrupt people on the planet, from the most corrupt countries and the most corrupt corporations, the most corrupt people in the most corrupt corporations in the most corrupt country on the planet. Literally, like the underworld, the seedy underworld is who he was selling his influence to. That's what Burisma is. It's an oligarch who is known to be corrupt, was under investigation from this highly corrupt country of Ukraine. That's who he's selling his influence to. Selling his influence to China. Yeah, that's who. That's who this sneaky, awful, lying sack of crap president was. And that mask came thrown aside yesterday in the very last act he ever took in his storied decades and decades long political career. Utter disgrace of a man. And it's a huge embarrassment for the Democrats who tried shilling for him for the last 4 years. That you're all full of crap yourselves or idiots. You're either stupid or idiots. And either one of them is inexcusable and is a reason to sort of throw you into like irrelevance and insignificance. That your statement and perspective on things is so warped that you couldn't see all these warts which were sticking out of the mask for the last several years. You try pretending that they weren't warts. Either way, whether you're an idiot or a liar, there's no reason to actually sit there and give your opinion on perspectives any credibility at all, because we know you're just giving cover up. You're just giving cover up. You don't care about truth at all. You just care about, you're just like literally your Pravda, your propaganda machine. That's not giving opinion or perspective. That's just selling. You're a marketer. You're not reporting news. You're not covering it. You're just a freaking marketer. You're an advertisement. Whoever pays you. And I have very little sympathy for the idiots who fall for it. I think that they're fools. I think that's all I have to say about that. I think that covered it. Whiskey Rebellion people got blanket pardons, and we sort of have an idea what they were doing. Yeah, we have an idea what they were doing. Now, Washington knew what they were doing. I assume the pardons came from Washington. He's the one who put down the Whiskey Rebellion. So he had an overarching clue as to what they had done. And then the next question is, if it's for stated crimes, if they've been charged, which you're saying you're implying here, because I'm not familiar with the pardons that were issued by the Whiskey Rebellion. I'm familiar with the Whiskey Rebellion, but I know it's the only time that we ever had a president lead troops out onto the battlefield, which is pretty cool. But it took a lot longer to put down that rebellion. It wasn't like a 10-minute deal at all. But yeah, I haven't looked at those particular pardons and the context they were given, whether charges have been levied or not. Trump just revoked EO 11246 signed by President LBJ 1965, which established government affirmative action. That's a good segue for me to start getting into talking about what Trump has been doing, because that man is awesome. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate you trying to help me out here. Is a pardon typically upheld by double jeopardy? If they haven't been charged in the first place, are they still protected by double jeopardy? Double jeopardy, the question that comes when it comes to issues of double jeopardy, again, I'm not a criminal defense attorney. My understanding is that when you're talking about issues of double jeopardy, the first question is, when did the initial jeopardy attach? Jeopardy has to attach once in order for someone to raise a defense of double jeopardy. And the question is, where is jeopardy attaching? At what moment is someone considered to be in jeopardy that they've gotten past that jeopardy, and now for you to try charging them would be double jeopardy? And the attachment of that initial jeopardy is a big question. So, like, I understand, like, for example, if someone is charged with a crime, they're indicted on a crime, and then the indictment is dismissed, I don't think that that's considered double jeopardy at that stage. Like, it depends on the stage of where it's at, but I don't know enough about double jeopardy law for me to weigh in as an attorney. So even what I just said now, I would not swear 100% is true. And if there's a criminal defense attorney who's watching me, which chances are fairly high, that is at least one out there, he might be sitting there saying, Joe, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, because I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I've never been a prosecutor. I've never been a criminal defense attorney. I've never researched the issue of double jeopardy. I've only heard discussions on the topic. So I'm certainly not an aficionado on this particular topic, but I do know that the issue as to when the first jeopardy attaches is not as easy to dissect as something that I would ever state as a legal opinion on, without doing a great deal of research, because I know it's complicated, and I think it might depend on, like, federal law versus state law. But none of these people who we're talking about with respect to these particular pardons, the only one who has had jeopardy attached to them at all was Hunter Biden, where I certainly think jeopardy attached to him with respect to the charges, the crimes that he was charged with. There, I think jeopardy attached. But there's no double jeopardy issue when someone receives a pardon and they've never been charged yet. Also, by the way, I would say that the Hunter Biden pardon is effective as to the crimes he was charged with. He's charged with those crimes. He's faced those crimes. Joe Biden, there's every reason to understand that Joe Biden knew what crimes he was charged with, and then he pardoned him. So for those that he was charged with and pardoned, I think that that's certainly a valid pardon and could not be recharged or raised in any way, shape, or form. With respect to things he was not yet charged with, that's where the blanket part comes in, and I don't know that it works. And I would question whether it would. At least question it and find out whether the court agrees that it works. That's brilliant, Joe. Have cash charge Bowman with USC 18 for pulling the fire alarm and let the Democrats pay a ticket to the U.S. Supreme Court. It would be rejected before it got to the Supreme Court because they would point to the Supreme Court and say, Supreme Court said this isn't 18 USC 1519. It doesn't apply in this type of scenario. Opponents can sell pardons. I made this point 8 weeks ago. And said Joe Biden could open up a website saying, give me $5 million, I'll give you a pardon. And have it blatant and ostentatious. And if he sold it, and if he sold them, no one could stop him. But I think to be effective, you have to label what the crimes are. I know you've already covered Elon, but I'm late getting on tonight. Check out the Bellamy salute. See how we used to do it to pledge the flag. Bellamy salute? Was that hitting the heart? It's like, how else are you supposed to salute? Seriously. I guess you can salute that way. But it's like, so it's kind of ridiculous. I always looked at it as like the hand up like that, not like that. But I do know that it is true that, Third Reich thing, they're all like that. The hand away like that. They were all like that. Now you're going to start talking about how high is it? Is it this high? Is it this high? This is, to me, if they're saying, if they're using the word Heil, that's when you start. That's when you start having questions. Until then, stop getting your panties in a knot. No one's part of a specific crime in the future, like a specific crime in the past. Contrast that reasoning to an unknown crime, future or past. No, I don't think you can. Although that's potentially possible. I don't know. I don't think you can. Well, it's an interesting philosophical question. I hereby pardon him for any murder he may commit in the next 2 years. That work? Or, he says, I hereby pardon. Let's say Trump was to hire a hitman to take out Cheney. And he's like, I hereby pardon the hitman who's going to kill Cheney. Not that I want anyone to do so. I want to be 100% clear. Not endorsing violence. Violence is terrible, and I mean that sincerely. No one should do it. But I'm just saying, he says, this crime that this person is going to commit in the future, I hereby am pre-pardoning them for it. Sounds insane. Sounds insane. It's a Mad Libs pardon. It is. Grominion, new member of the following. Welcome, brother. Welcome indeed. I'm catching up in Hat's comment. It's a soft G on Doge, like the meme. The whole point of the name is because it's of the meme, both the coin and the meme. I don't know what meme you're talking about. I don't even know what you're talking about. Glad you're back. Hope you had a great time. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that. I feel very welcome. Sent video 2020 Biden saying he wouldn't do this. He was always a liar. He was always full of crap.
Considering a wave of preemptive pardons. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of it, what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons. Nor are you going to see in our administration the approach to making policy by tweets. It's just going to be a totally different way in which we approach the justice system.
Thank you. Fair enough. Appreciate that. Good catch. Great catch, actually. Yeah. Full of crap. Always a liar. Always been a liar. Always will be. His whole life was just one big lie. Have Cash send the FBI to investigate Fauci, and after he lies to them, arrest him for those crimes, and then haul him in front of a House committee. So that's the other thought is like, what, that if they're pardoned now, they don't have immunity. You potentially say you don't have immunity because you've been pardoned. You sort of have to pick your poison, right? You can't start charging people who have been pardoned, saying the pardon is no good, and then afterwards say, by the way, you need to testify because you've been pardoned, because you're sort of showing that it's not the insulation that you're claiming it is. It's not the insurance that you're claiming it is. So if you're trying to say that it should be assailable, you can attack it, then you can't in the next breath say, by the way, you have to testify because you don't have a Fifth Amendment protection because that's been waived through the pardon. Pardon of innocence is like burying survivors, yeah. Pardon powers in Old English law come from God. With that definition, these pardons would work. I don't. Just because something comes from God, our civil liberties come from God, but there's a certain point in time where it comes from God, but sort of passed down into a different level where it's now serving within the confines of mankind. Most religious people, whether you're Christian or Jewish, and I assume in Islam as well, there's an expectation to try and emulate God without an expectation that you're ever going to become God. Like we're all advised and urged to try and emulate God. That's different from saying that you are God. In fact, to claim that you are God, I think in any religion, is considered to be a rather sinful thing. Yet there's a duty for someone trying to emulate him as much as possible. Just because the pardon is derived from God doesn't mean that we're attaching godlike omniscience to the actions that someone committed. So God has the ability to pardon anyone for anything because he has omniscience on what happened. Similarly, a president, to the extent he knows what happened, has a pardon power. But we're finishing up here. With that definition, these pardons would work. In the U.S., the power is given by the people. Preemptive pardons don't work because power is not from God. So even Wesley here is saying ultimately that a U.S. pardon wouldn't be effective because it's emanating from people. I'm saying even under British law it shouldn't work, but all the more so I agree with this assessment since coming from the people. How can you pardon for something that no one has any knowledge of? That doesn't seem to make any sense. Biden would be able to be trans innocent, but could Hunter sell his blanket pardon by claiming crimes that others did for small claims? Potentially. Oh, he didn't murder him, I did. Potentially, but that would not be legal. That would be perjuring himself potentially. So my point about jeopardy is that the party. So maybe it would work on a pragmatic level, but it wouldn't be legally effective. My point about the jeopardy is that pardons without conviction is like a fart in the wind. They've never been in jeopardy, so maybe charged possibly. Yeah, I think that's fair. Whiskey Rebellion pardons named the person in crime they were pardoned for. The controversy it was for treason. Okay. Thank you for informing me. I had the privilege of meeting Allegan News at the inaugural ceremony. We were both. I met him and his wife and kids. It was really awesome meeting you there, brother. He pardoned so many people that they have heard of me. Nice. Joe, talking about limitations on pardon, would this extend to a treason charge against Milley? Treason defined Article 3 and the power to punish is congressional separation of power issue. So the point about the Whiskey Rebellion treason, it seemed to work there. But again, until it's tested, we don't know. It falls under the same purview. I've heard people say that treason defined Article 3 and the power to punish is congressional. So it's a Congress ability. There doesn't seem to be any limitation specifically as to treason per se. Now, the reason people would read it in here is because when it says except in cases of impeachment, what do these last 5 words mean? Except in cases of impeachment. Does that mean he can't pardon from the impeachment process itself? Or someone who's charged with something that is impeachable? I don't know if this has ever been, this may have been defined by a court at some point in time. I don't know. I haven't researched that. So I'm a little bit hesitant to wander into that field until I've actually looked into it. But it's an interesting question. I don't think that would be a separation of powers thing, because this seems to be a separate and unique power he has, and it doesn't seem like whether it's, and if every you're saying because Congress has the ability to punish, so he can't stop Congress from acting, as opposed to all other punishment is normally implemented by the judiciary, right? I mean, think about this for a second. Well, it's weighed and measured by the judiciary, then implemented by the executive branch. When Congress is not the one who puts them to death, Congress is the one who would decide treason. I don't know. I need to think on that. I don't see why it would be different. Just because the law is being defined by Congress, even if they say it's the judiciary, once he's in the executive stage of it, of carrying it out is not going to be by Congress, right? So why would he not have the power then? It's a very interesting philosophical question, though. So I don't want to weigh in with an opinion. I have conflicting thoughts on it. So all we have to do is accuse him of child trafficking, and be considered pardoned for child trafficking? No, because it depends on who you're talking about. It depends on which of these pardons you're talking about. Because when you're looking at these different pardons, so over here with Anthony Fauci, he gives like a field, an area. So it's a full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against which he may have committed taking part in during the period through the days prior arising from or in any manner related to his service as director of the NIH, right? As a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. So it's only those, but if in theory he had committed fraud unrelated to medicine, right? If he had something like that, he would not have a pardon for that, or child trafficking, right? Same thing with respect to the J6 committee. It's a pardon for offenses arising from any matter related to the activities and subject matters of the select committee to investigate January 6th attack. So, again, it's anything else they did that was a crime, like what you're describing here, would not be pardoned. Contrast that. I don't know. I assume that trafficking would be considered a violent crime, so probably even his family, in theory, would be. I assume it's a violent crime. I'm not sure if trafficking is. Probably. His family got a blanket pardon for any non-violent crime, and Milley got it for anything he did, in part, that's arising from his service of Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army or Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, when I think of preemptive pardon, it's a godlike act. The president doesn't have that. Yeah, I concur. Joe, please take a look at SCOTUS language in ex parte Garland with respect to the pardon power. Bill Beasley wants me to look at SCOTUS language in ex parte Garland. This sounds like a real homework assignment that I don't know if I can do in the middle of a show. Let me see how long this is. Yeah. So, as I expected, this starts 71 U.S. 333 and goes down for like 70 pages. So if you have, maybe even more. Oh, wow. I guess really well. 399 it ends on. If you have a particular part of that you want me to take a look at, which is like, a couple of paragraphs or something that I can zero in on, it's a little easier for me to try and look at. I appreciate you calling this case to my attention, but I assume this relates to the pardon that went into effect for cases like. I assume this had to do with Civil War, given its timing, but I guess it seems like it's talking about attorney counselor. The power of pardon conferred by the Constitution is unlimited except in cases of impeachment. It extends to every offense known to the law and may be exercised any time after its commission, either before legal proceedings are taken or during their pendency, or after conviction and judgment. The power is not subject to legislative control. I'll assume that this is ex parte, though. This was from one justice, right? I remember hearing someone talking about this particular case and the breadth and the wide breadth of this case. I don't think this is. Is this the entire court was sitting, or this was one judge who was sitting on it, running circuit? Is this a circuit opinion, or is this a actual? This U.S. Supreme Court. Maybe it was the court sitting as a court. I need to look at this in more detail. I appreciate you calling to my attention, but I don't want to. Does that potential to impact my perspective on this? Yes. I'm certainly not gonna like. I can't properly dissect it while sitting on stream with you. But I appreciate you calling to my attention. I'll try to look at it. Bad Boy says original word including exception for treason. After debate, they removed that language. That's an interesting thing where they sometimes talk about, and when they're dissecting statutes, as to whether when there's an official change, what impact that has as far as assessing what the statute is designed to mean, and whether or not that comes into the calculus of proper statute interpretation. Joe, you should take a look into Biden's first wife death. Interesting. Was there a pardon? Was he pardoned for it? Barrett Boy says, I think the power is as broad as it wants, and the convention, a proposal was made to limit reprieves and pardons to after conviction. That language was withdrawn. Yeah, but then this is what we're just talking about as far as the change that, as far as whether or not that withdrawal is reflective as far as helping in us better understand the statute. It's something I've seen a lot of conflict. I've seen conflicting perspectives on it from the Supreme Court. I think it might have even come up in the U.S. v. Fisher case, when I recall, but I'm not sure. Entropy Nomad gifting 5 Good Logic memberships. God to the ghetto. Resilient, thank you for sharing with me that preemptive pardon. I appreciate that. Thank you for trying to help me find a brother. Denise says the person needs to be removed immediately from whatever church she belongs to because it's not Christian. Glad you made it home safe. So I think I saw it. This is the woman who spoke in front of Trump. I did see this. I have a shorter clip of this. I'm not going through the full 8 minutes. I'm not going through the full 8 minutes of this. I actually have a shorter clip of that, Denise. So, and I plan on getting to it at some point tonight. Let's check the ghetto. All right. I wanted to start talking a little bit about what Trump has been doing, because this guy is awesome. Greatest president ever. Close that out. This is the shorter version of what Denise wants me to look at. Trump has been busy. Here's one thing he was busy with. Here's one thing he was busy with.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people,
look at JD Vance's size.
the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals.
Trump is very
They may not be
stoic.
citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques.
When religion becomes political, and this is not religion, respectfully to any of you who think this is, I don't think this is a Christian activity. I just don't. I don't think anything about this is Christian.
Synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away.
I actually saw this whack job in a different interview where she was blasting Trump. I think she was blasting Trump. I definitely saw her before. I definitely saw her like on a 60-minute segment. Maybe one of you has seen it, where she was like expressing the same ridiculous perspectives. This is embarrassing.
And that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every.
JD Vance looks like he's going to be sick. I would never want to play poker against Melania because you never know what's going through her brain. You never know what's going through her brain.
Every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
That's my president. Are you finished? Are you finished? Are you finished? One of the things I loved most about the inauguration, one of the things I really loved most about the inauguration and the speech that he gave afterwards is he was calling out what crap the last administration was to Joseph R. Biden's face and to Kamala's face, and talking about the utter collapse of our country under their reign. And that, as I mentioned on my local stream, felt cathartic. It's like, yes, they're going to sit there, much as Trump and JD Vance are forced by social contract to sit there quietly and just listen to whatever nonsense is spewed by this wannabe preacher, pastor, I don't know. Whatever nonsense she's spewing, and the social contract says you're going to sit there quietly and not say anything. But the difference is that they have a national platform afterwards to go back to. And she's powerless, so her words ultimately have no meaning. And she's been, from what I understand, roundly criticized by a lot of people, a lot of Christians for what she did here. But they have a national platform. What's Biden's platform now? If he wants to respond to all of the assault that Trump gave, talking about what an utter disaster the last administration has been, and how now we're in the golden age. The period of darkness is over, of the Biden administration is over, and now we're in the golden age. And none of it seemed very aggressive if you were sitting there on the MAGA side. I was sort of actually thinking about how, like, when Obama spoke, it was very hard for most of the Obama files to actually appreciate just how attacking and aggressive his words were, because he was so insidious in the way he would attack. And I think most MAGA probably cannot appreciate just how much an affront his inaugural speech was to Biden, Kamala, and the entire left. It was. He didn't say you suck, but everything about his words was saying you suck. I mean, that's essentially what his inaugural speech was. You sucked on the border. You sucked with the economy. You sucked here. You sucked on an international stage. You were an embarrassment everywhere. You were a complete and total loser. And now the good people are in charge, and we're going to be in the golden age. And we're going to start trying to fix this sinking ship that you've been scuttling for the last 4 years. But he never said you've been scuttling it, so he wasn't overt in that way. But I could definitely understand how Kamala and Biden were basically stuck there, sucking it up. And I was like, damn Skippy. That's what I was saying to the people who were around me when I was listening to him speak. I was like, I love the fact that he's saying this to their face, and they're forced to sit there and take it and never have anywhere near the same podium to respond that Trump now has for the next 4 years. It's awesome. It's really awesome. Because that's what social contract says. You're stuck. You're stuck. Eat it. And everything he said was truth. It was hardcore truth. All Fed EMPs and DEI roles are now on paid leave. And all Fed employees on DEI roles are now on paid leave. Beautiful. Beautiful. God warned us about false prophets. Yep. Christian in Chino. Chino, right? Chino, like Gino and Chino. Interesting. I guarantee the altar boys are safe with. Pretty safe to say. Indeed. Pretty safe to say. Yeah. So let's start talking about some of Trump's wins since that speech. I mean, they say he established Doge. I don't know that it's actually technically established, but he has been signing a whole ton of EOs and signing pardons where he pardoned roughly 1,500 J6 hostages. Thank God. Day one, he came out there. He never said beforehand, he really never said, I'm going to pardon them all. And commuting the sentence of certain, most notorious ones to time served, which is essentially a pardon. But I guess I'm not even sure the legal distinction between commuting their sentence and pardoning them. Perhaps a pardon serves to enable them to have no criminal record, as opposed to commuting their sentence, which means you still have the criminal record. I think that might be the distinction. That's my gut, but I haven't researched that, so I don't want to state that as a lawyer. I'm just saying that as a speculation. So don't say, "Hey, I heard from this lawyer that that's what the difference is." I'm just telling what my gut says on it, not what the law is on that one. But he did commute the sentence of half a dozen individuals, and the other 1,500 he pardoned. Now we go through this process of trying to get them out, which is, unfortunately, as we covered in the beginning here, it's been taking a ridiculously long time, as the warden of the Gulag is taking forever in trying to process these papers because there's so much paperwork to do. But I want to express my kudos and thank you to Trump for not hesitating, not laying his head on the pillow before he went out there yesterday and issued those pardons and actually said, get these out right away. We need to get these people home. That's our president. That's our president right there. And spot on accurate. We do need to get them home. That's first and foremost. He also declared a national state of emergency on the southern border, started mobilizing our military towards taking care of the illegal alien problem and closing down the border. At 12 o'clock yesterday, before he even left the rotunda, the CBP app, which is an app that was designed to facilitate faster processing of illegal aliens, was a way for illegal aliens to start registering and trying to begin the process of immigration. That app was shut down at 12 noon yesterday. And all appointments that had been made through that app were canceled immediately. In addition, trying to close the border, here's Tom Homan talking about what steps he's already undertaken during the first 24 to 36 hours of Trump coming back into power.
Czar to the president, Tom Homan, also the former acting ICE director. So, Tom, we were expecting, based on your initial schedule, that today roundups of criminal illegal aliens and the process of deporting them would begin. That seems to have been put on hold for a little while. When can we expect that to happen? Where will it begin?
No, it started. It has started. ICE teams are out there as of today. We gave them the direction to prioritize public safety threats that we're looking for. So we've been working up the target list. There was some discussion about Chicago because the specific operational plan was released. So we had to look at and reevaluate, does this raise officer safety concerns? And it does. Mm-hmm. But we've addressed that, and teams are out there effective today.
So critics were saying, okay, you're going to round up people's abuela, their grandmother, and ship them back to where they emigrated from. Who are the people that you're targeting, at least in this initial phase?
Right out of the gates, public safety threats. Those who are in the country illegally that's been convicted or arrested for a serious crime. But let me be clear. it's not only public safety threats that will be arrested, because in sanctuary cities, we're not allowed to get that public safety threat in the jail, which means we got to go to the neighborhood and find him. And when we find him, he may be with others. And unlike the last administration, we're not going to tell ICE officers not to arrest an illegal alien. So if they find others, they'll be arrested. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want: more agents in the neighborhood and more collateral arrests.
President Trump signed a number of executive orders, as we pointed out. On
sanctuary cities, it's like there's sanctuaries. If you want to find the maggots, you got to go to where the dead bodies are, right? You got to go where the dead carcass is if you want to find the maggots. So you want to know where you're going to find illegal aliens? Sanctuary cities is a good start. That's where you're going to find them, right? If you were an illegal alien, wouldn't you try to make your way over to a sanctuary city and find out where the sanctuary city is and try and say, oh, this is where I'm going to shack up, where I'm going to get protection? That's where you go in first. That's where you go in first. It's almost like the sanctuary cities have been gathering them together for us. Gathering them together for us. Frankly, one of my aspirations for the Trump administration is that he will abolish any sanctuary cities and call them unconstitutional violation of the unilateral authority of the federal government to assess how to handle illegal immigration. That's a federal power. A sanctuary city, a sanctuary state, whatever stupidity that these municipalities want to refer themselves as, it seems to be this seems to be a constitutional question which is squarely in federal domain. We saw in US v. Texas when Texas tried keeping people out. The court upheld and said federal government has authority to determine how we're going to handle illegal immigration, potential threats of illegal immigration. And Texas, as a state, can't even keep them out. Can't even just keep them out if federal government says that they want exclusive domain. So if Trump says that going forward, there's no such thing as a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state, I think he's in the legally stronger position. Certainly seems more consistent with any read of the Constitution you're going to have.
Illegal immigration. Here's what he signed. He declared a national border emergency.
I love this picture. It's like a picture of fierce determination. Lady Lawgic was like, she thinks it's not a good picture of him. I was like, she likes him more with his like happy smile. But I think MAGA, it's almost like this was taken from his, it's almost like they put a suit and tie on him from his mugshot, right? That's what this is. It looks like it's his mugshot. The suit and tie. This is fierce determination. Like, I am not backing down. I'm going to be using this picture a lot.
Ended birthright citizenship, ended catch and release, reinstated remain in Mexico, designated cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, deployed active troops to the southern border, and end the use of the CBP One app, which many people were using.
So let's go back over that list real quick here. Just so we can review there. Is declare national border emergency, which the purpose of that is to basically involve the military and say that we can use the military purposes of securing the border and not rely on the already constituted federal agencies, but to basically bring in the National Guard and many other troops that potentially wants to bring in order to more rapidly address this massive issue created by the Biden administration. Ending birthright citizenship. Now, this is a legal issue that I really want to explore. The birthright citizenship, the ability for him to end birthright citizenship. I have not yet researched this issue. One would think the first initial read would be that seems to be violating the Constitution. Someone coming out of law school who's not familiar with this area of law would almost certainly come to the conclusion that, hey, under the 14th Amendment, when someone is born in this country and they're under the control, the authority of the United States, they are automatically granted citizenship. Constitutionally, if it's a constitutional grant of citizenship, then no president has the authority to override that. In which case, how could he just end birthright citizenship? Now, the question comes in as to what does it mean when it says it's under where's the 14th Amendment? Pull it up here. Let's get, I'm going to get the exact language because language is important here. Birthright. I haven't really, I've only begun looking at this. I drove back from Washington, D.C. today. It's a 4-hour drive. I came back, I was tired. Not going to kid you. All persons born naturalized in. Why do you have to do this? You're so artsy, idiots. Just give me the damn. Suck, CNN. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Can you just give me the stupid... All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. The key question here is this language right here, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean? Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It certainly seems like it's trying to exclude certain people, saying they're not citizens. Because if you take this as a qualifier, right? And when you're reading English, these 6 words, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are a qualifier. If you take these 6 words out, it would just read, all persons born and naturalized in the United States are citizens. So we're saying, no, it's not all persons born or naturalized in the United States. It's all persons who were born and naturalized, and you need to have the second thing, that they are subject to this jurisdiction of the United States. So it means some people are going to be born and naturalized in the United States who are not citizens. Why not? Because they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Well, who is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? Off the bat, there is a group of people that this could be referring to. Who could this be referring to? It could be referring to foreign dignitaries who are visiting, right? So a foreign dignitary, which is in the case of Wang Arca, I am drawing a blank. Let me pull it up here. Wang Kim Ark. So it's a case in 1873, shortly after this that was passed, where we had a situation with an individual named Wang Kim Ark. In the case of Wang Kim Ark, this was a Chinese national whose parents were granted full-time residence here in the country, from what I recall. And I only started looking at this case for the first time a few hours ago, and I was tired from my drive, so I ended up taking a nap. But broadly speaking, his parents were permitted to be in the United States. I think they had left the United States. He left when he tried coming back in, and he had been born here while his parents were granted full permission to be in the United States. When he tried coming back in, the United States said, "You can't come back in." He said, "I'm a citizen." They said, "No, you're not." Supreme Court said, yes, he is. And they looked at that exclusion as referring to foreign dignitaries. It's about subjects to the authority, the jurisdiction of the United States, which means when they say subject to the jurisdiction, it means who has control over you, who has a right to prosecute you, who has a right to hold you accountable to their laws. Foreign dignitary has diplomatic immunity, technically is not bound by our laws, which is why someone who's born as a child of foreign dignitary here on United States soil would argue is likely not considered a citizen, because while they're visiting here, they have permission to be here, but they're not considered. At no point are they considered subject to the United States because they're granted special powers and provisions. Well, someone who's born here and their parents have a right to be here certainly is someone who is automatically granted birthright citizenship. This begs the obvious question: someone who's born here and their parents do not have a right to be here, are they considered subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? And if you're going to say they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, in that case, you have to ask yourself this. And here's the argument: if you're from the perspective of the illegal alien born here, all right, my mom was born here. If she committed murder here, you would prosecute her here, wouldn't you? So she was subject to the authority of the United States. Arguably, a foreign diplomat would not be chargeable here. So that being the case, and they would have diplomatic immunity. So that being the case, it falls somewhere between Wong Kim Ark. These illegal aliens fall somewhere between Wong Kim Ark and a foreign dignitary, I would think. Because there is some level of jurisdiction, but they're not allowed to be here. They're here illegally. I have a feeling, my gut says Trump's going to lose on this. I think he will. But I want to look into this. I want to research this a little bit further before I give you a definitive legal opinion on this. Before I come to some sort of legal conclusion, I really want to look at it. My initial gut reaction is, even though I don't like what my gut reaction is, but my intellectual perspective is, I think if I was a judge trying to determine this, I would lean towards reading that amendment as granting citizenship to an illegal alien. I could be talked out of it. I need to research further. But I think subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, if I was looking at it, I'd be like, look, the parents are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. This kid committed some sort of crime, the United States would charge the kid. They wouldn't treat him like a foreign dignitary. So how are they not subject to the jurisdiction? If you want to argue from Trump's side, I really want to hear your perspective as to why it is that they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Even if they've been shirking those responsibilities, even if they've been breaking the law by being here, that doesn't mean that they're not subject to being punished for breaking the law. I don't like that it's worded the way it is. There's a lot of things in the law that I don't like. That doesn't mean that I can dismiss the fact that that's what it kind of says. And the law is what the law is, whether or not I like it. Personally, if you ask me, I don't think that the law should be that anyone who's here on our soil, or that the Bill of Rights applies to them. I think it was created by American citizens for American citizens to stop the people who they put in charge of them from abusing American citizens. And I don't think it should apply to anyone who's an illegal alien. I don't think an illegal alien should get the protections of the Bill of Rights. I think we should have, you can have an absence of due process in going after them. I think they should be forced to incriminate themselves. I think a lot of the things that we have that we put into effect to protect us from being abused from our government is designed to protect us from being abused from our government. And that's why they're limited in that respect. That doesn't mean we stop them from that we're protecting others who are potentially harming us. Intellectually and philosophically, I never understood why the Bill of Rights should apply to someone who's an illegal alien visiting here. I don't think they're the same freedom of speech. I think that's part of the blessings of the civil liberties that we've afforded ourselves and carved out ourselves and said the government can never stamp on that was designed. That's part of American privilege. We put these people in charge and we limited them from affecting us in certain areas, require them to go through due process. Can't have unlawful search and seizure. The people who put you in charge. You can, I would think you could have an unlawful search and seizure of someone who's an illegal alien who's here. I don't think it should apply to them. But the law is crystal clear that it does apply to them. So while I don't like the law, I don't think it's philosophically flawed, my perspective on the law has zero impact on the law, and the law is that they do have those privileges. Similarly, I don't like the concept of birthright citizenship for an illegal alien, but my read of it is, I think they have it. And I expect the court probably to uphold it. But I could be talked out of that. I want to research it a little further. I know Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch is saying that he is looking to support Trump's effort here to end birthright citizenship. And I hope he's successful. Going back to the other steps that Trump has taken so far in trying to secure the border. So he's ending catch and release. He's reinstating, which, amen, God bless, reinstating remain in Mexico, designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, deploying active troops to the southern border, which was part of his declaration of national border emergency, and ending the CBP One app. All of these great initial first steps. I applaud President Trump and Tom Homan for their initial efforts and wish them Godspeed in continuing that effort to try and remedy this ridiculously deleterious problem.
Which many people were using to schedule interviews to claim asylum here in the United States. I want to take a couple of those, but let's first of all go with this idea of ending birthright citizenship. It's enshrined in the 14th Amendment. How, with an executive order, can the president change that?
Well, first of all, President Trump's a game changer. Every one of the executive orders we worked on, and these are game changers. This is going to give us the most secure border in my lifetime. So great for him to do that. Birthright citizenship is a major driver of illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've done this over 3 decades. One of the first things an illegal alien does when they get here is get birth to U.S. citizen child. I think that makes him immune from our laws, right? So even if he goes to immigration court and loses his case, even though he's in the country illegally, he's convicted of a crime and gets to order removal. They think that the fact to have a U.S. citizen child would make him immune. We can't send that message to the whole world that you can enter our country illegally, which is a crime. You commit another crime, and you can even get removed by an immigration judge after expensive due process. But if you have a U.S. citizen child, you're off the hook. We can't send that message. We'll never.
Now, this is a different issue we're getting to. And this one I think Trump has grounds for. I'll let him finish his statement. But this is a whole other kettle of worms that I think Trump has a lot stronger footing on, that he's starting to touch on.
Fix the border.
Right, but the 14th Amendment does not differentiate between somebody who's in this country legally or illegally.
I'm not an attorney, but I don't think the 14th Amendment enshrines that at all. We have just as many legal scholars, constitutional scholars, say it doesn't really say that. So what President Trump is taking that action, we'll let Supreme Court decide that.
Well, it's definitely going to go to the Supreme Court. I don't think there's any question of that. Designating the cartels in Mexico and elsewhere.
So before we go into designating the cartels, these are my thoughts about what he just said. I agree with, philosophically, I agree with the perspective that a child born here from an illegal alien is likely considered an American citizen. Nothing in the 14th Amendment says that if you have a child who's an American citizen, you become an American citizen. You're a caretaker of an American citizen. You're ergo an American citizen. Or if you're an American citizen. So what I think Trump is fully empowered to do, which I'm sure that the left will go nuts about, but who gives a damn what the hell the left says? But I think one of the things he's entitled to do is say this to the parents of that illegal child, of that illegal alien, this newly born American citizen, the kid, who's an infant or some minor. I think that Trump is fully empowered to say, they're American citizens. They can stay. You have to go. If someone comes, think about this for a second, right? Consider this for a second. Somebody emigrates from a different country and comes here. Does that mean their parents are automatically citizens now? Of course not. And just because the American citizen, the naturalized American citizen, may be a minor, that wouldn't affect the rights of the parents that they now are American citizens. And there's no law that says American citizens have to be raised on American soil. There's no law that says that we have to allow whatever caretaker happened to birth this American citizen. So I think what Trump is fully empowered under law to do, without violating the Constitution, is for him to say, yes, your child is an American citizen. You're not. You're leaving. If you want your child to stay here, we'll put them in the custody of the state, and they'll be raised by the state. But you're out. Goodbye. Adios. That I think Trump is fully empowered under the law to do. And I think that would be a great way of stopping people from trying to give birth here on our soil. Coming here, give birth, and then commit whatever crimes they want. Saying, well, you can't send me home because my kid's an American citizen. Who gives a damn if your kid's an American citizen? Okay, your kid's an American citizen. That's nice. We're not charging your kid with a crime. We're not trying to evict your kid. Your kid's allowed to stay here. And they'll become a ward of the state. And that, I think, would certainly slow down people from wanting to have kids here and have that kid serve as what's called an anchor baby, to anchor them into some right to remain here in the country. It's like, because it's not an anchor anymore. All you're doing basically is you're giving birth to a kid, you're popping the kid out and never see him again. You can do that. The same way if the parent of an infant gave birth, some parent of an infant went on some killing spree, we would throw the parent in jail and make the kid a ward of the state. So too, I would tell these parents, all right, your kid's either a ward of the state or take him with you. Take him back to whatever country you want to go back to. Go back to China, go back to Ecuador, go back to whatever, go back to France. I don't care. Go back to whatever country you came from. Go back there. You can take your kid with you. We're not going to keep your kid from you. Or you can leave your kid back behind and have them be a ward of the state. But they don't create some new right for you to remain here. That's what I think Trump has the power to do. That's what I think he ultimately will end up doing. I hope he does. So that's the obvious answer for Tom Homan there to give anyone who's complaining. Because I think the Supreme Court is going to end up saying these kids born here are citizens. All right, they're citizens. They're either going to be taken by their parents elsewhere to the countries where the parents come from, are citizens of, or they'll stay here, the parents will leave, and they'll become wards of the state. No different than if the parent was thrown in jail. But in this case, they're not thrown in jail. They're just thrown to a foreign country. They're banished.
Elsewhere, it's foreign terrorist organizations. This is something that previous administrations have resisted doing because of the potential impact with the Mexican government. What tools does that give you that you don't have now to go after these cartels?
Well, first of all, I've been pushing for this for a long time because these terrorist the criminal cartels in Mexico have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined, right? Record number of sex trafficking women and children, but the drugs, the fentanyl has killed over 250,000 Americans. So they need to be terrorist organizations. But that puts a whole weight of the United States government on them. Not only are we just going to deal with the operations of Mexico, but the Jalisco cartels in 43 countries around the world. So we'll work with other world leaders to attack this cartel all over the world and bring them to their knees. It has to be done.
Amen. God bless Tom Homan. I hope he's successful in every one of his endeavors. God bless that man. Duckfat says, maybe this is another case to reinforce the other part of birthright citizenship. After receiving it, they can be deported back to their homes with their parents and return when they're 18 years old. Yep, exactly what I was just saying. Exactly what I was just saying. Joe, look up the app. Silent Seeker shows an updated message, which apparently that says in Spanish, all appointments have been canceled in Tijuana, Mexico on January 20, 2025. What a criminal this Biden was. He's actually trying to expedite the illegal aliens. What an asshole. There's no other word. You're just an asshole. You so hate America. Such an asshole. Sanctuary states equal 30-year-old child, get out of my room. Yep. What are the consequences for a judge to ignore a presidential pardon? These are difficult questions. These are difficult questions. It's not really the judge over here, it's the warden, right? In theory, Trump can appoint like some federal agents to go in there and just remove them. In theory. You're saying as far as ramifications for the warden? I don't know. It's a reasonable question to ask. I've never thought about it. You think that many of these orders are to get them into the court and have the law settled? I think he's testing whatever he can do, and he's going to do what he can until he's stopped by a court. That's what I think is happening here. That's the implication we get from that interview with Tom Homan. He's like, look, we're going to do it. Maybe the court will stop us eventually. We'll get done what we can. Let's do it now. The court may stop us eventually. All right. In the interim, until the court stops them, they're going to keep doing it, which is kind of the way Biden operated, right? You know, and speaking of which, I was talking about this on Spaces earlier today when I was like, a lot of people, you know, on the left are all upset for whatever that matters about the J6 people being pardoned. And I'm just like, this is one of the things, you know, what I try explaining there is if you want to find a healthy balance and you know that someone has a character flaw, the way that someone has a character flaw is by trying to go to an opposite extreme from that character flaw. And that's how you come back to what actual justice is. That's how you come to actual healthiness, the balanced line of, you know, what's the middle road is if you're on one extreme that's too far, you try going to the opposite extreme, and through that you end up coming back to like a healthy level. Someone who has a character flaw of being lazy or being a procrastinator. So if they try becoming obsessive about doing things ridiculously early, they'll come back into being a normal phase. Obsessive eating, you know, go to compulsive dieting, hopefully come back to some sort of balance. For the last 4 years, the J6 defendants have been, and anyone associated with J6, the government has put a boot heel of oppression on them. And the only way to course correct from that is to basically say, especially after the J6 Select Committee has now received their pardons, that you can't even investigate whether or not they were intentionally trying to wrongfully put their boot heel. The government's wrongfully putting the boot heel of oppression. You and I have our opinions about it. We clearly believe it's a boot heel of oppression. But someone who's sitting there in the middle, you have to recognize that when you have taken all these different steps to make it as difficult as possible for them to defend themselves, force them to come to Washington, D.C., defend themselves rather than being prosecuted in the state that they reside, and to be tried by people who consider themselves victims of J6, which is ridiculous for anyone who's a victim of a crime to then sit as a jury, as a juror in determining guilt or innocence. And all of them claim to be traumatized, rightly or wrongly, but they're traumatized because they were in the zone of danger of the J6 siege of the Capitol. referring to it as an insurrection, even though it's not legally an insurrection. All these different, that slanted perspective that you line them up there. And now you're not even allowing us to investigate, purportedly trying to stop us from investigating these J6 select committee members to try and see how much did you tilt things wrongly against these hostages. So even those who were the worst offenders on J6, you have to basically say everything that was done here has a taint of corruption. And when the government engages in activity that has a taint of corruption, the only way to possibly begin remedying that is by going to the opposite extreme and saying even those who are clearly in the wrong, F it, because you took it way too far. And the only way we get back to that balance is by overcorrecting. And then we come back to what justice is. That's the only way we can possibly come back to what justice is. You clearly, this is an admission when you issue these pardons for the Liz Cheneys and Adam Kinzingers and Benny Thompsons of the world for the actions that they took with respect to this J6 committee, after you took all these different steps, after you tried charging them with crimes, as the Supreme Court said, that's not a crime. That's not a chargeable crime. You were so over-aggressive in going after them. The only way to begin remedying that is by taking it to the opposite extreme and say, I don't care what they did on this thing. I don't care how bad they were. They're walking free. Now, today. That's the only way you start getting towards a course correction. And the next step is for them to actually recover financial compensation for the years of torture that they suffered at the hands of our government. I'm talking complete restitution from their attorney's fees, and I'm talking about civil claim act, civil claims reform, where they actually get paid for every day that they suffered at the hands of these ridiculous oppressors. But I don't think he wants to get them settled. I think he's trying to get things done as quickly as he can to try and remedy the situation. You guys should support those who did crimes as illegal aliens, something we cannot do as citizens. Yeah, that's true. New win unlocked. Scottish appointment because Soto looks. Is there anything about Sotomayor? Is there any news about Sotomayor? Nothing breaking. I don't see anything since November. They've been asking her to retire for a long time, but yeah, she's looked terrible for a while now. In TikTok SCOTUS case, it was said by justices in oral argument that China company does not have First Amendment. Since companies are given 1A under Citizen United, why would people be different? Because they're not born here? I mean, I want to think through the logic of what you're saying here. Let me think this through philosophically, what you're getting at. It was said by justice in an oral argument that China company does not have First Amendment. Why would they not have, since companies do have First Amendment, why would people be different? They're not living here. It's a Chinese corporation. That's why. You're saying why just like a visitor would have First Amendment rights, so too I'm trying to come up. You're making an argument, to my mind, against extending civil liberties at all to foreigners, which is what I obviously have stated moments ago. I strongly agree with, but is not the law. So you ask me now, why is there this distinction? I don't know. I think the whole law in general is stupid. It's philosophically flawed. So if you ask me to give philosophical justification for why there would be a distinction to their First Amendment rights, when under Citizens United they're a citizen, the company has the same right as a person. I don't know. You're asking a fair question. All your question actually does is it lends stronger philosophical rationale as to why it is that we never should be looking at them as having First Amendment civil liberties in the first place, not persons nor companies. I think it'll take an amendment to end birthright citizenship, and there isn't an appetite for that. I'm not sure 2/3 majority is even possible anymore. I think you're correct in that. But that's why I was saying what Tom Homan was talking about, the idea of potentially saying, okay, let us be shut down. We'll do what we can now and say that they're not citizens, get them all removed. But then if they get overturned by Supreme Court saying, no, they are citizens, you could say, okay, well, you can come here, but your parents got to go. Since the 14th Amendment, we have a 1 welfare state and 2 must count all people for census reapportionment time to review. We have welfare state and must count all people for census reapportionment time to review. Yeah, those policies have been killing us. Good luck getting the majority that we need, 2/3 majority. Good luck. Joe, I totally agree. They can take the child will be placed in an orphanage. Solomon's choice, a true parent would take the child. Yep. Go back to original intent. It was for slaves. That's correct. It was. And therefore what? I'm not sure. How does that apply? You're saying it doesn't apply to legal aliens? And that's, you know what? This is where you see a difference. And whenever you're trying to engage in constitutional law, there's different ways of looking at the Constitution. The 3 classical ways of looking at it, well, there's 4 really. But the 2 of them are very similar. One is a textualist. Look at the text and see what the text says, and then interpret what the text says. Then there's original intent. So original intent was for slaves. It was never intended. So even though the language seems to reference that it could apply to illegal aliens, it was never intended to cover illegal aliens. Then you can look back historically and say, well, historically, 2 years after, 3 or 5 years, within 5 years of it, within 20 years of it, it was assessed and it was agreed to apply to illegal aliens in the Wong Kim Ark case. So the textualists will be like, all right, what do these words say? How do we read it? Original intent is it was intended for slaves. It wasn't intended for anyone else. So, and the living, breathing then there's the last way of interpreting it, which the left loves to use, is living, breathing, is like it might have meant these words might have meant this then, but we can sort of look into like the Constitution as if it's a living, breathing document, and it's got to sort of be read in context of the times, and the times and current times and situations. This is how we want to read it. The living, breathing perspective is basically an invitation for judges to engage in what's called judicial activism, where I want to read it this way, and I want to just pretend that this is how it's read in current times. So accordingly, I'm going to just read it as I want to. It's the most ridiculous way to read the Constitution, but that is how the left loves to read it. So, but your original intent of slaves is correct. Oh, yeah, we have the Gulf of America. That was another thing we have. He announced the Gulf of America, signed the executive order. It's the Gulf of America. That is the law. There is no such thing as Gulf of Mexico. If you call it the Gulf of Mexico, I say, arise, get out of my chat. It is not the Gulf of Mexico. You're not wanted here. You never were wanted here. Get the heck on out. Nobody wants you. Nobody wants you. Your parents don't. You're ugly, and your mom is so embarrassed by your very existence that you should just be fleeing to the hills. The society shouldn't be forced to stare upon the ugly visage that is you. Because it is Gulf of America, I say. Gulf of America. It's been protected by the United States of America forever. Central America is part of America. What the heck did Mexico do to earn it? It is Gulf of America, I say, forevermore. And soon we'll have Green America. We'll have Can America. It's coming. Get the hell out of my chat. I do want to share with you all something before I go further. I need a moment here. I need a moment. So I didn't upload it yet. I want to share with you the coolest video that I can't express to you how cool this video is. When you're looking at it, it looks like just anything. It really looks like just anything. Like you're like, what am I looking at here? I don't understand what this is. That's what you're almost certainly going to say. You're almost, I would say it. When I first saw it, I couldn't appreciate how cool it was that I was watching. Totally unrelated to anything other than my visit to the DC for the inauguration. This is a video I shot that you have not seen. No one's seen this because I'm the only person who filmed this. And it was such a cool moment. My first evening in DC, I went to the Conservative Caucus and when I went to the Conservative Caucus, they had an event, a party that they were having. At the party, it was mostly Brazilians at this party. Mostly Brazilians. Finish downloading this. I filmed this. You can't appreciate this until you see it. This is Elaine. What's his name? He's on X. I'm going to chat with him. What's his name? I'll find his name. 1 second. Take me 1 second. It's going to take me 1 minute. This guy here is Elaine something. This woman over here is Bia, someone else. When you're looking at these people, you're like, I don't know who the heck these people are. That's what you should be saying. At least that's what I was saying. I was like, I don't know any of these people. But apparently they're like cultural celebrities for being very right-leaning, like figures, like Tucker Carlson's of Brazil. When I was at this function, they have a deposed president who, much like Trump, was thrown out under shady election issues, was too right-leaning, and the woke powers took over in Brazil. So these people they don't have freedom of speech the way we have. They're literally staying here in America because so as not to end up in jail. And so this guy here, what's his name? Who's in here? He wasn't here. It's Elaine dos Santos. Well, anyway, so this happened. This guy here, by the way, is like, this guy over here is like running to like become like the next president of like Argentina or something. Venezuela? Argentina. His name is Eduardo Bitar. Who's, I'm saying is, I had no idea who the heck these people are. I was like, I don't know anything about these people. And they're like really, like, they're like the Matt Gaetz of Brazil and the Tucker Carlson of Brazil. And to see them all engaging in just like random song, I don't know. I thought it was very cool. Guitar. This guy he doesn't speak any English. But this is this guy over here is Eduardo Bitar, who is looking to become president of Venezuela or something. He's like the conservative choice for president in their next election. Not that I know anything about Venezuelan politics. I thought this was really cool. I don't remember her name, but I remember looking her up and she had like 2 million followers on X. And I was like, I didn't know there were 2 million people in Brazil. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to show you their joy. And I thought it was very cool to have like these South American cultural celebrities gathered together in a room. Because South America, Poland is the biggest conservative channel in Poland. And they actually said it's called Republica TV, was the one who hosted the event in the Gaylord National Center where we were watching the inauguration. There was, I don't know, several hundred, there was like 500 of us in a room watching the inauguration together. This election and return of Trump to the White House has what is recognized by the world as a ripple effect throughout the world, not simply on the actions he takes here in America as those actions impact the world, but that the world in other elections, other places are inspired to believe in the possibility of their conservative return to normalcy. And they represent the perspective that the entire Western world, which is far more woke than we are, that there's a chance to reawaken into having a normal perspective about what society is supposed to look like. We all are feeling directly the benefits on day one. We are feeling directly the benefits of having Trump back in power. Biggest blessing in the world from God. Thank God. Long may he live. I hope Donald Trump has a long and healthy life well beyond his present term, and that this man lives decades in perfect health, physical, mental, emotional, and has nothing but blessing come to that man. The man is amazing. And I think that, and I recognize his flaws. I don't always agree with him about his policies or his approaches on things, but the impact he's had here on America is tangible, irrefutable, and has been such a complete and total blessing for America and Western society, simply by what he's done here in America and the firepower of this man, the strength of this man is remarkable, despite his personal flaws, despite the fact that he has shortcomings, much like you or I have shortcomings. It's remarkable, but the entire world senses the significance of him coming back. And yeah, when he does something cheesy like names Gulf of America, I can speculate why he does that. was he going to put a big flying? He's going to put a big floating golden T in the middle of Gulf of America. Big floating A for America. What the hell is the point? What the hell? That's what you're probably saying to yourself. What the hell is the point? He has a reason for it. He's trying to reestablish America's significance. And basically saying, we're here, we're back. And he understands marketing. He understands the influence this has. Calling it Gulf of America. He understands he understands what he's doing. Is he always right? Of course not. Of course not. Does he always see the repercussions? No. But this man does not give up. And I do believe in my heart of hearts that he genuinely is trying to better America. If only for the purpose of establishing and entrenching his own legacy. But whatever the reasons are, he has such remarkable perspective as to what is possible and unyielding determination to succeed, which that alone should serve as an inspiration to any person of any color, any stripe. The left loves to knock him all the time as being a baby or childish, whatever. They're missing out and not being able to appreciate his fortitude and just how remarkably resilient and determined he is. And I have no question that he's trying to make life better for all Americans, for every one of us, even those on the other side of the aisle. Unfortunately, sometimes the patient doesn't appreciate how badly they need the medicine. So, but that right there, this celebration, their celebration of Trump coming back to power, is a reflection that they understand, they appreciate that this has a ripple effect. Brexit happened in 2016, and it signaled where America was headed in its election that year. Unfortunately, pendulum swings. And sometimes they'll swing against us. But right now it's swinging in our direction, thank God. And hopefully for humanity's sake it continues. I bet this only flies if they use the Ninth Amendment. We'll see. Who knows? Could Trump with an EO declare emergency and claim all legal aliens and not subject to jurisdiction of U.S. suspending habeas corpus for them? Claim all illegal aliens. I don't see how that's essentially kind of what he's doing when he's trying to end birthright citizenship, isn't he? Also, once they attain that status, can he just strip them of it? Could you strip you of your status? Someone comes and is already a citizen. Can he, by an EO, make you not a citizen? I don't think so. I don't think he would have. I don't think he could do that. I would question how that would work. The 14 was amended after the Civil War. Its intent, I believe, was to grant decision to the children of slaves. That's correct. If that adds anything to the analysis. No, I agree with you. Historically, that was the objective. But in the Wong Kim Ark case, was like in 18... What year was that? I had it up here before. Wong Kim Ark. What year was that? 1873. So it was within 10 years after this. It was like 6 years after the 14th Amendment was passed, and they applied it to legal aliens. So, can Joe finally name the 3 times the 9th was? Shut up. Shut up. The only way the 14th should apply to anchor babies if they want to be slaves. Just stop it. Stop it. No. Did you say Argentina like Javier Milei? He's fun. Yeah. The NFL has put in place preemptive penalties for the teams going against the Chiefs. Don't even get me started. I was having a conversation with a friend today about how ridiculous some of those calls were against Texans this week. It was insanity. is insanity. And I was speculating whether Josh Allen will start getting similar protections because this guy's earned it. Watch Tuesday night's Tim Pool. Why? It's a particular thing I should be looking for, Petty? What am I supposed to be looking for, Petty? What should I be looking for? I don't know what to be looking for. I'm looking at the chat now. You can tell me. You don't have to super chat. Just tell me what's supposed to be. What? This is what we're all wondering. Yo, Tony from Chicago. Yo, Tony, what up, Tony from Chicago? My brother from another mother. I'm watching the chat here. See if Petty Eddie. Tell me what I'm supposed to be looking at from tonight's Tim Pool. Rambalon gifting a good Lawgic membership to the ghetto. Thank you, Rambalon. You are awesome. Turning everyone pink. Turning everyone pink. I got a couple more things I want to cover. Oh, he had a guest in Poland? Is that the guy who's like, no, we don't have any legal aliens here? Because that guy was great. Gulf of America. Gulf of America. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything else that Trump has done before I cover some of my smaller stories here. What did I have here? Where was it? Where was you? Here. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Oh, back in England. I heard her say, down the back. This is what I wanted to check. So, the pardons that he did. Oh yeah, he also got us out of the Paris Climate Accord. Adios, adios, you climate change hoax people. We're out of the climate hoax. Yes, he pulled us out of the Paris Agreement for the second time. He's like, I say no. No. I say no. You Parisians, no. He repealed nearly 78 executive actions from the Biden administration on immigration, climate change, public health. He was just repealing, which I guess is appropriate because that's what Joe Biden did when he came in the first day he was there. He just started repealing one thing after another. Got us out of the WHO, the World Health Organization, started establishing the Dougie, or some of you would call the Doge. Some of you ignorant folk would call the Doge. He already reversed the electric vehicle mandates, which don't work, and we don't have the electrical grid to cover, never would, and basically said that's done. And I think I covered everything that he did so far. Pretty much covered everything. Yeah. This is true. Yeah, getting us out of the World Health Organization. It will be interesting to see whether he uses the pardons against people. Here's the other thing that I didn't really mention to you when I was talking about the pardons. Biden didn't pardon himself. He didn't try pardoning himself, which I was speculating whether he would do that or not. I said from the gate, he's definitely going to be pardoning his brother. So in that sense, I feel like I was prescient in calling that, even though it shocked the left. But I was prescient in calling that he would pardon his brother. Or at least attempting to. Whether or not it's effective, that's to be determined sometime in the future. But potentially, he set them up to all come and testify against him. He set them up that potentially now we can be like, all right, we're coming after you, Joe. And all your son's going to testify against you. And your brother's going to testify against you. And if they lie, we'll get them on perjury. And a lot of people are talking about his unfit to testify. This is not exactly what happened. First of all, being deemed unfit to testify, and this has, I'm glad you brought this up. Damn it. I'm glad you brought this up. There was a special prosecutor who looked at Biden and basically said, I don't think we'll get a conviction, because if he were to come in and testify, they would see a guy who's an old man who's easily confused, and they would be hesitant to convict him, which is a ridiculous perspective for a special prosecutor to start getting in. His objective is to look at whether or not a crime was committed, not whether or not you would get a conviction. So it was a ridiculous perspective that Robert Hur came up with to try and protect him from any sort of prosecutions and try and give him a pass. A lot of people are raising the fact that, well, if he does not have mental competence for that, how is he president? If he doesn't have mental competence for that, how is he issuing pardons? If he does, how is pardons effective? He doesn't have mental competence. A special prosecutor's assessment, correct as it may be, that this guy is an adult old man, is not a court determination. It's one guy's opinion. And for purposes of the law, it's a meaningless opinion. It's meaningless until it's adjudicated that, well, if Robert Hur come in and testify and say, yeah, that dude was totally mentally shot, that if there was some sort of question of his mental acuity that became relevant, that could be evidence to help establish some sort of potential claim based on his incompetence. But it is not a finding by a court of law of his incompetence, which means that until there is such a finding by a court of law that he is incompetent, he is assumed to be competent. So these pardons are assumed to be issued from a competent president. And everything that he's done, despite whatever Robert Hur wrote about him, you could have literally 10,000 people judging him. You could have a 1,000 doctors come in and say, we find him to be mentally unfit. None of that would have a ramification as far as making his actions the actions of an incompetent, nor would it have a ramification as far as ability to stand trial. It's only once there's an adjudication from the court that I've heard this testimony from these doctors, and based on their findings and my looking at this case, I find him mentally unfit. That is where the incompetence is assessed at that moment. So then to go back and say that the other stuff he did before that moment is innocent because of incompetence, that's a struggle, because we don't know when the incompetence happens, and the first moment that we can definitively say there's incompetence is when the judge issues that declaration. So a statement from Robert Hur is something that serves as potential evidence, but it's almost impossible for it to have any impact on having ramifications on the actions he has taken since, before, during, after, since, until such time as there would be a finding by a court of mental incompetence. So it's unlikely it's going to help to overturn any pardons, overturn any bills that he signed, or any actions he took as president, because throughout his presidency, it was never adjudicated to be incompetent. If, in fact, he were to be charged and he wanted to defend and say, you can't charge me because I'm mentally incompetent, at that point, he would need to establish that he is mentally incompetent. And that establishment will only come once a judge takes evidence and says, based on the evidence I've seen, I find to be incompetent, and that incompetence would be going forward, and hence, going forward, you cannot continue with these charges because he's not fit to stand trial. But as of today, he is fit to stand trial. So he's fit to testify or do anything else that you or I could do. So we need to sort of distinguish between talk of him being incompetent, public assessment of his incompetence, and a court adjudication of incompetence. Those are all very different things. And until such time as there is a court adjudication, all of our speculations that, look, this dude is fried, don't really amount to very much from the perspective of the law, other than it can be provided as evidence that would help lead to a determination by the court. But that's the cutoff moment when there's an adjudication from the court. But look at these. Adam Kinzinger. As members, we take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Some of my colleagues failed to uphold the oath and requested pardons from the Trump administration. More to come, but the only reason I know to ask for pardon is because you think you've committed a crime. Oh, is that so? Is that so? What a loser. This guy posted, you're going to accept the pardon. Oh, my God. It's freaking sick. This sick little animal. You sick, disgusting, awful human being, Liz Cheney. I really hope they go after her. I really hope they go after her. I don't know that Trump will, because I think Trump would feel like if I go after her, the reason I can see him not doing it is because he pardoned Ross Ulbricht from the Silk Road. Yeah, I heard about that. I don't know much about the Ross Ulbricht situation, but I heard the name floating around as someone he pardoned. What else did I want to share with you? I had a couple other things I want to share with you before I send you on your merry way. I had that song stuck in my head. Yeah, one or two more things. No one knows what this is. This is going around. Things that are viral that you may have missed. Everyone's wondering what the hell Barron was saying to Joe Biden here. He gives him a side eye after he says something. And look at both of their facial reactions after the exchange are kind of funny. Look at his face. Look at Biden's face. Look at Barron now. That glance back. A lot of people are talking about, like, what did he say to her? If you actually look at that exchange, just you're a little more informed than most folks. He's actually walking up and he's about to first he shakes Biden's hand and then he shakes Kamala's hand. And he's actually talking. You see he's reaching out to Kamala here. They sort of close in. You can't see. He's really just saying, I think he's just saying, nice to meet you. He said that to Biden first, and then he's saying, but everyone loves to speculate about what he said to Biden because Biden's reaction afterwards is kind of him looking around confused. But that's his incompetence. He's always confused. And then a little side eye from Barron afterwards. I wish you would have said you should have pardoned yourself, brother. Too late. Soto retires, so DJT swaps her for Cruz. Even trade. Would you want? Is that who you would want? Cruz? Ted Cruz? Really? Or are you saying that that's not an improvement to have Cruz? It'd be interesting. You should really name me. Oh, this is important. More good news on what Trump has been doing so far. More good news. I can't believe I almost forgot about this. This is big. This is big. Share with you, Alex Jones.
President Trump.
Every day, I want you to know, every day, we're going to be having breaking updates on Trump trying to fix America. I'm telling you now, this is going to be, there's only more coming. Remember those 51 feds who lied about the Biden laptop? Security clearances gone. Investigations begun into those 51 agents. Go get them. There were not enough people Trump, there was not enough people. There's too many people for Biden to pardon.
Is expected to sign an executive order revoking the security clearances of 51 intelligence officers who signed a letter portraying Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation before the 2020 presidential election. The same people also said he was a Russian agent with no evidence. The order also authorizes further investigation into those involved in the publication of the infamous letter. It requires the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, to revoke any current or active clearance of the listed 51 individuals. Former Director of the National Intelligence, James Clapper, former CIA Director, Mike Hayden.
Rambo, thank you for sharing another Good Logic membership. Someone mentioned, by the way, the idea of Senator Mike Lee. Actually, two more. Thank you, brother. Of Senator Mike Lee becoming the next one. He would be amazing. He would be amazing. I would love it if Mike Lee is really smart. He would be amazing.
John Brennan, Leon Panetta, former National Security Advisor John Bolton are on the list. Bolton.
The government ears Alex Jones, who has the largest audience in the country, bigger than any of the networks.
Things that are happening, and I've got a big stack of news here in front of me on that. Trump has had the head of the Coast Guard, a huge DEI kook, who spends most of her time on that. It would not even help the Border Patrol do any type of interdiction of human smuggling. She has been removed. And there's a whole feed on X about this with all the stuff. But Trump is making good on his promise to purge the government of scumbags. Trump rips security clearances from 51 spies who lied. Then he hit them with another bombshell. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order revoking the security clearances of 51 intelligence officers who signed a letter portraying Hunter Biden's laptop as Russian disinformation before the 2020 presidential election. The same people also said he was a Russian agent with no evidence. The order also authorizes further investigation into those involved in the publication
Trump's coming.
of the infamous letter. It requires the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, to revoke any current or active clearance of the listed 51 individuals. Former Director of the National Intelligence, James Clapper, former CIA Director, Mike Hayden, John Brennan, Leon Panetta, former National Security Advisor.
John Brennan is the key one.
John Bolton are on the list. Bolton. Evidence that the newly minted 47th president is not content with simply holding people accountable who have already been publicly shamed by adding their own signatures to the letter. Trump has authorized further investigation in the matter. How about Crossfire Hurricane? Illegally spying on Trump. They were all involved.
So many people for Pam Bondi to go after.
And Brennan is the ringleader. He's their boss of the deep state at that level. And Clapper famously lied to Congress and said the NSA has never spied on anyone in the United States.
Really,
we played the video probably 500 times. I'm not going to play it again, but if you want to just type in Clapper lies to Congress about NSA. And he's also a terrible liar. He's like, he looks like he goes, actually, the NSA has never, he told us, the NSA has never spied on any American in America. Yes, Chairman. I mean, just come on, people. So Trump should be ordering an investigation, not just into the laptop cover-up and to the FBI. That's all illegal. Child porn, all of it, just drug dealing, money laundering, it's all there. Audio that maybe Hunter recorded of, I work for the Chinese head of intelligence and I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. Something may have happened to him. He pays us a lot of money. My dad's upset.
I want to share with you, Clapper here.
I appreciated the chance to talk about a number of issues with you previously, and I'm going to be asking you some additional questions about drones and targeted killings in the days ahead. But for today, my congratulations. Director Clapper, I want to ask you about what I asked you about a year ago, and that was the matter of surveillance, and particularly what the rules are that an intelligence agency would have to follow in order to electronically track the movements and locations of an American inside the United States. And I asked you about this a year ago, and you said that your lawyers we're studying this, and I hope that since a year has passed, we can get some answers to these questions. So first, let me ask the question, if an intelligence agency wants to electronically track the movements and whereabouts of an American inside the United States, how much evidence do they need?
Well, first of all, let me just say, sir, that particularly in the case of NSA and CIA, there are strictures against tracking American citizens in the United States for foreign intelligence purposes, and that's what those agencies are set up to do. I think, though, when I might ask Director Mueller to speak to this, because what you're referring to is, I think, devolves into the law enforcement criminal area. So, Bob.
Well, let me, and I do want to hear from Director.
One more thing, just flat out lying, Congress. One more thing that I forgot to mention is that Trump announced just a couple of days ago that he's expecting to release all the files on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK within the next few days. Not the end of his administration. No. We might find out about it this month. We might learn what happened to JFK this month. Wow. If that breaks, I probably would, as soon as that breaks, I'll probably look at it. I don't know. There's probably a lot of files. It could take a while to break it down. But I might do a special if, in fact, we learn what happened to RFK, JFK. Also, I plan on covering the confirmation hearings of Kash Patel, for sure. I want to live stream the confirmation hearing of Kash Patel. I have to figure out when that's happening. When is that? Kash Patel. When is Kash Patel confirmation hearing? Senate Judiciary Committee intends to hold confirmation hearing of President Donald Trump's pick to lead the FL on January 29th. So I definitely plan on live streaming that. That's a week from today, or a week from, I guess, yesterday now. Unsurprisingly, Marco Rubio has already been confirmed with a unanimous 99-0 vote because he's deep state, and that was terrible. But they got the background investigation into Kash Patel, and the other one is when this is the Judiciary Committee eyeing Kash Patel for January 29th. So I definitely plan on live streaming this next Tuesday. So I want to, because he is a gangster. He's gangster in the most awesome ways imaginable. So I definitely I plan on watching that live with you. I want to see him just fielding every question there. When is RFK Jr. confirmation hearing? Let me see when that is. Down the back and then I don't know if they have a time. They said it's unlikely before the end of the month. So, but that's something else I wanted to see because he's going to get a lot of flack and he's a very smart guy. So I want to see how he handles that. So, Benny Johnson became a new dad on Monday too. Yeah, congratulations, Benny Johnson. So happy for you. We have evidence is debate footage. Obviously, non-compos mentis couldn't sign a binding contract. How could he sign anything? Like I said, this is all evidence. It's all evidence. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that was like the best line when when Trump is like, to be honest with you, I don't know what he just said. I don't think he knows what he just said. Oh my God, such happy times. Such happy times. All right, I'm going to land my plane here. I'm already 3.5 hours in. I knew it was going to be a long show tonight, but I didn't expect it to be 3.5 hours. I didn't expect that. All right. I guess it's time for me to tell you I'll see you all tomorrow. Yeah, let's land our plane here. This is a good time. This is a good time. I thank you all for joining me. I hope you'll be back with me tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. And you know what they say. Lab meat, they, them. Not for you. Plane's coming down. It's coming down. Oh my gosh, plane's coming down. Ah! Ah! Doing a quick search around, make sure I didn't miss anything. I got it all. All right. I was checking out with my diggers. So I will see you all tomorrow. Right. And don't eat the bugs. Do not eat the bugs. Let freedom ring. Godspeed.